Oh wait. Hey everyone, it's Arjun and Shamir, and the Detroit Gamesters are back for a very interesting and special episode. There's been a lot going on, and a pretty big announcement today, the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. But there's a couple of things we definitely want to talk about before we get to that. So how excited are you, Shamir?
Pretty excited. I know we talked about, we've been trying to do like a 2 week flow for these podcasts, which gives us a decent amount of time to play up on stuff since this isn't our first time, full time job, and also, for some interesting news to happen. And I really wanted to do this last week after the Switch One, kind of reel and showcase, but you had convinced me to wait an extra week, and honestly, I do think it was kind of worth it because a lot of big developments, a lot of hype. But first we wanted to catch you up on what we've been up to and some of the things we've been playing and watching, and then from there we're hoping to really just dedicate a lot of time to Nintendo because I'm kind of feeling like a fanboy today.
I am too.
But I guess we'll start off with what we're playing, and we actually just got into Split Fiction. So we've been sitting on it for a while, and then we finally tried to actually play, and then it was kind of a pain logging in because of the EA
Worst
account and
experience.
everything.
Worst experience I've ever had. If you ever had a Xbox or PlayStation or platform linked to a disabled or deleted account, it recognizes it but doesn't allow you to log in to play the friend using the friend pass. So it was one of the worst experiences I've ever had. But I will say, EA customer support, it was on point. They knew exactly what I was talking about, and I barely had to explain anything.
They're probably getting a ton of that like right
Yeah.
now because it's such a niche thing,
Yeah.
and there's probably a bunch of people who are trying to use friend passes right now.
100%.
They're like,
because it's
what the hell?
Yeah, it's such a unique game to like offer that, and now it's cross-platform. So someone from an Xbox can play with someone on a PlayStation, vice versa. So it's no longer tied to the online ecosystems dedicated to the platforms. So yeah, it's just interesting. So like we got through there, started playing, and we're about what, maybe 3 hours in. What do you
Yeah,
think
I
so
think
far?
we've beat 2 levels. I think we're on mission 3, and I kind of looked a lot, and kind of looked ahead, and I think there's like 8 missions total. So
Not bad. I mean,
we're not halfway. We're maybe a quarter of a way through. So
yeah, it's about a 12-hour game at the pace we're going. I think it's interesting because in the 2 levels we played, we had some side stories. And for those that don't know what the game is about, it's about two writers that write both sci-fi and fantasy stories within the game, but their ideas are being stolen by some corporation, and then you get sucked into some virtual reality where your stories are actually like real and played out, and it's about surviving these environments through the stories. So it's interesting. It's based on obviously the developer and Joseph Ferris. He said he's named the two women after his daughter, so I found that somewhat interesting. Doesn't do a whole lot for me, but
yeah,
interesting to pick two women as the protagonists. That's not common, right?
yeah, and it's like not necessarily a DEI thing. It's I remember watching that interview he had, and someone asked him about like DEI. He's like, "What are you guys talking
He's like-
about? I'm like the father to two daughters. Like,
He's like,
what?"
He's like, and I quote, he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? This is the funniest video.
Yeah. I guess with me, I really have mixed feelings about Split Fiction. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm kind of biased because I just don't really like super cocky dudes, and I feel like that guy is just on another level after It Takes Two. I mean, It Takes Two was good, but it's like, bro, like, cool your jets, like.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, the guy's super talented. He really is. But I guess with me, I really like old school couch co-op games, and it's been a while since I've really been able to play that.
What was
So I
Battletoads?
probably Battletoads was the last one because I tried It Takes Two, and I played it with the wife, and we were not able to beat it. She tried really hard, and I got kind of frustrated, kind of waiting on things, and yeah, we couldn't beat it. We got maybe like halfway through, and I had a lot of fun, but I don't know. I guess I just expected more out of It Takes Two, and I don't know if that was unfair of me. But sorry, not It Takes Two. Out of Split Fiction, I really had high expectations, and in some ways, I feel like I've been let down. So I guess I'll start with the good. The graphics aren't absolutely amazing, but they get the job done. And I think everything feels smooth. It feels vibrant. The art style and the different settings are so well imagined, and some of them are really unique. That to me, even if it wasn't the biggest like graphical powerhouse, it's a really solid looking game. So I think on that front, I'm pretty happy with it. I don't have major complaints. It could look sharper, like I think some of the models and things like that. But I remember when we were playing that cyberpunk level and you got to really see the draw distance and everything. I'm like, all right,
some
you
cool
know.
things going
You
on
know, I
there.
feel like the art style kind of makes up for, maybe it's not the most cutting edge graphics.
Yeah, like the first thing that they definitely did, again, while trying to make this from a technical standpoint, they knew they were going to have to sacrifice somewhere, and that was the models, like the way the game looks. So they sacrificed that for gameplay and creativity and just a unique experience,
Yeah.
which I understand. I think this game hasn't captivated me as from the beginning, like It Takes Two and Battletoads has. Like especially Battletoads, which I still remember us playing
Yeah,
together.
Battletoads was
And
probably the most like fun couch co-op experience I've had
yeah,
in years, and I think
and
that's one of the most underrated games.
well, that game was balanced in the sense that aesthetically it looked good too, but it was much shorter. It was maybe only like a 6 hour game or a 4 hour game. But like that game, we were frustrated with, but it was a fun type of
Yeah.
frustration.
And it felt like old school like arcade games because of course I had to crank it up to hard mode and oh my god, it was hard.
Yeah, it
And
was
so
hard.
I remember that stupid Galaga level. Oh my god, that was one of the hardest things.
Or the level where we're on the bikes and we kept hitting the wall.
Oh my
Like
god,
stuff like
yeah.
that.
And
But
it was hilarious. Like I thought the humor was great.
yeah,
The gameplay was pretty varied. There was definitely some crazy difficulty spikes, which
Yeah.
I can understand. You can say that's a knock, but like an old arcade game, like it's
Yeah.
they're not meant to hold your hand.
Yeah,
It's supposed to be hard.
and with Split Fiction, we haven't had that difficulty spike yet. We couldn't pick a difficulty. And right now, it just feels like we're plotting through just for the sake of the story. And that the level that we did play kind of overstayed its welcome. So we
Yeah.
kept feeling like, hey, like these side stories that we're playing, those are fun and unique, but they last maybe 10 minutes, maybe 5
Yeah.
at most. And then we would get frustrated because we got to like maybe 2 different parts of the cyberpunk-esque level. And we're like, what do we do? And sometimes it isn't clear.
I kind of feel more passive when I'm playing it because I think what I'm missing is there doesn't seem to be a lot of tension in the game, based both from a gameplay perspective and also from a plot perspective, right?
Yeah.
Because kind of slightly spoilers, but the premise, and you can see this in any review or YouTube video about the game, is there's these two writers, and essentially someone's trying to steal all their ideas with the machine. But like, why should I care? Like, what's the tension? I think like with any story, when you really want to get the audience engaged, you want to know what the stakes are. And what's the worst case scenario if I, as the gamer, do nothing?
Well,
It's like, are their lives in danger? Not necessarily, because you think if they just sit around doing nothing, eventually they will be pulled out of the glitch.
Yeah, and the way they said it at the beginning of the story, again, spoilers, but the one protagonist says, "I'm just trying to get published." So what's the worst case if you don't get published? Really, nothing. You just pivot.
I mean, my heart will be broken.
Sure, but like in it takes two. It was about a mother and father trying to reconcile their differences
and if they
for
don't,
their kid.
then it's over.
It's over.
So like, you don't really have as much to lose. You don't have as much tension. Like, this needs to be done now. Right. And also, like, where's the danger? Like, it's a simulation.
Well,
if you're afraid, if you're in pain and anything, it's a dream, basically.
And with It Takes Two, there's more of that emotional toll where, again, for those that are in relationships or have been or with a family member, whatever, there's always going to be ups and downs in any type of relationship or a friendship. And it's about how you navigate that. So again, it hits hard for a lot of people that probably played the game, which is why it probably sold like 20 million units. Now this game, I think they already announced either 2 to 3 million people played it or 2 to 3 million units were sold. I can't remember what it was.
Pretty solid, yeah.
Which is solid for the first month, and that's another success for the studio. I just don't know if it's going to sell as well or we'll have the legs. And again, maybe this game changes over time as we play it because this got high reviews. It has a 90 or 91 on Metacritic.
Yeah, pretty much everyone was saying that this is the best work that they've made. So, I guess I have to wait and see. But, and I think from like a writing perspective, like I won't go too much in the nitty gritty of my story, but my first book that I've been trying to make happen for a long time. One of the major struggles I've had, and I've gotten a lot of feedback on, is technically a large part of the story takes place in a simulation, right? And so it's hard to make the reader feel engaged because they're like, well, what's going to happen? Right. It's not like they're actually going to die, And so I think that's one thing that kind of slows things down for me. And from the gameplay perspective, if you die, there's no big deal, right? So because of that, like, even if things get hectic, when you're playing, if you die, you literally respawn in 2 seconds if you just press the Y button.
Well, I can give them a little pass for that because, again, this is a game. But from the grand... You take a higher viewpoint of this, and like you said, the story, and that's like, I have higher expectations of the narrative because of the prior game already. So that set a precedent for me. So I would expect them to push the boundaries in the narrative aspect as
Yeah.
well, and maybe it still does.
Well, and I don't want to be overly hard on them because I do think the banter between the two characters is really well done. And
Sure.
when they're talking back and forth, it really does feel like two like people and not video game characters, and that's a very hard thing to get right.
Yeah.
So that's why I say it's like a mixed bag. Because for me, story and characters are really important. And yeah, I'm not feeling the tension and the stakes. Banter is really good. The characters are
Sure.
pretty fleshed out, so I'm enjoying that. Gameplay perspective, it is fun, it's varied, and really there's some set piece moments that are just so creative and fun that even I was taken aback. Like
Yeah, but like
some of the motorcycle levels, I was like, oh, this is really fun.
sure, but
But
like
then for me, like if you think about it, like what if like every time you died, like after a certain amount, it took you longer and longer to
yeah,
respawn each
something
time.
they could have been unique and creative about that. And I think like when we were playing, there was a part where, again, spoilers, you're on a motorcycle, you're trying to deactivate a bomb, you have a phone, you gotta unlock your phone, you're getting a phone call, you have to go through this CAPTCHA authentication process. And honestly, to me, this was more cringe than it was funny or like.
I actually thought it was funny.
I thought it was cringe. Like that one wasn't like that good. Like I thought the tension was going to be there, but the tension, like you said, the story wasn't there for me to say, "Oh my god, I'm trying to get
Yeah,
this."
like
This
if
was a
you
funny
don't do
moment.
it, and then like the way the scene ends, it doesn't really
It didn't matter.
how fast you got
Yeah.
through everything.
I
because
failed
like
to.
because the thing is like if you actually had to get through everything fast enough, and that's how you succeed and move on with the scene, it'd be one thing. But like if I did nothing,
Yeah, you
seems
could have
like
still
it would be a
survived.
similar result.
Yeah, because you get to I got near the end where I had to accept the terms and the conditions and the privacy and all that. I do some of that, I almost hit accept, and it goes, oh, the motorcycle blew up, but guess what? You still survived. You just fell down, and it's like, okay, like what was the
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that? There was no
Yeah.
point to that then.
So yeah, I get what you mean. So I think those are some of the things that have kind of dragged down the experience. But definitely we're gonna play the whole thing through.
Yeah, we'll beat
and
it.
and for me right now, like as much as I'm like being hard on the game, like I give it an 8 out of 10.
So I was just about to say this, man. You just beat me to the punch. What I'm playing isn't a 9 out of 10 right now. Like I'm just be honest with you again. This is the first year, and if this is already 1/4 of the game, I don't think an additional 3/4 is going to convince me otherwise.
Yeah, and an 8 out of 10 is not bad. It's just like when you are being led to believe something is like going to be a 9 for you, and then it's more of an 8. Then you're just going to like, okay, like let's cool the jets.
Yeah.
And I guess the last thing I was going to say about the game, the platforming is like pretty fun, and I really didn't expect to love this game as much as I did. I loved Astrobot. And after I got done playing Astrobot and seeing that creativity and just seeing how well the platforming worked and how varied it was, I kind of lost a little bit of the allure of for this game. I feel like if I played Split Fiction before I played Astrobot, I would probably review it higher.
Yeah.
But after that, I'm just kind of like, okay, one of the main things Split Fiction has going for it is how each encounter is so varied.
I'll give you that.
But Astrobot, man, the level design is so good, and all the different like, built backpacks you can get. Like, oh man,
I'll give you that. This game, Split Fiction, is technically a platformer as well, and so if you compare the two, purely based on platforming mechanics, like Astrobot like wins out by a far shot.
I mean, I'd give Astrobot a 9, and I was was mad hating on that game.
So yeah, that's all I got in Split Fiction for now.
Yeah, and I guess other things, I actually started to get back into Assassin's Creed. So I got Mirage. It was really cheap. I got a disc replay for like $14. So I was like, all right, I'll load this up. And maybe it's, again, one of those things where I just went into the experience not really expecting much. But I've been pleasantly surprised, to be honest. It doesn't look anything crazy fantastic. Graphics are serviceable. Gameplay so far has been serviceable, but it really does feel like Assassin's Creed and not necessarily, a big, bulky RPG. And I kind of like that. I miss the old Assassin's Creed games. So I'm probably going to play it a little bit more, dip in here and there. I don't think it's gotten the hooks in me yet, so I don't know if I'll be able to play it full through. But big picture, I know Shadows came out, and that was kind of high on my list of things to play. But I think I'm going to wait, honestly. Like, I feel like with as much going on, I don't want to spend $70 on the game.
I don't either. Like, it's funny. Like you were just talking about Mirage, and it's like, I thought for sure this Assassin's Creed was going to be the one that got the really good review scores. It was going to be very, not just sound and technical, but like, oh, they finally pushed the game to its limit. And this ended up scoring slightly worse than Mirage.
Did it?
Yeah, it got like an 80 or 81. I think
Oh,
Mirage was slightly
I
better.
didn't know Mirage scored that well.
I thought it did, or it was maybe Valhalla, but I thought it was Mirage. So again, this was like what most reviews said from what I read was, hey, it's just Assassin's Creed with a little more refinement, and the story is like just another nice story to see. And then it's like I don't want to pay 70 just to be like
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's mediocre because it's not mediocre, right? By any
Yeah, I
standards,
mean,
based on what
an
people are
8 out of
saying.
10 game is a solid game,
Yeah,
but for me, like I just have a lot of other things I'm really excited for.
yeah,
Like this is just a busy month in April, so I'm okay with kind of putting it on the back burner.
same here.
But if I didn't have as much stuff on my plate, like I would totally
Yeah,
play it.
because the setting itself is so
Oh yeah,
enticing to me. Again,
oh
if you play Ghost of Tsushima, I know it wasn't your favorite game, but you liked it. But like this specific setting, you can be a ninja or a
yeah.
samurai, and
I
just
mean, honestly, I mean, I'll have to see, but I think I might like Assassin's Creed Shadows more
yeah,
than
I'm sure you will.
Ghost
I'm sure you
because
will.
even though I love the setting and the characters, like I really wasn't feeling the combat, and I really am digging the fact that there's two different characters, and
Two
Ghost kind
different
of
play
did
style.
two
Yeah.
different playstyles, and Ghost kind of did the same thing, but I really didn't feel the need to switch up my playstyles unless
Yeah.
the game forced me
So
to.
the problem with Ghost was that you literally had a unique playstyle just to beat a unique enemy. And that didn't
Yeah,
make sense either. You could have just
exactly.
had one
Yeah.
playstyle and just fought
And I just
everyone.
felt like I just had to kind of follow what the game wanted me to do,
Yeah.
and then when I did that, like I didn't really feel that creative or
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. It's
I mean, again, I mean, this sounds like we're mad hating, but these are
no,
all
these are
eight.
good games.
These are all 8 out of 10s
Yeah.
to
Which is
me.
why I'm saying I'll get it. Like I will eventually get this one out of all of
Yeah.
them. Like
But for me, like, yeah, I'm gonna wait until I can get it for like $50.
yeah, for
That's what
sure.
I'm looking at. But I guess I expected this game to review really badly. I felt like there was so much negative attention going into the game. All the YouTubers were hating, and that kind of creates that like cognitive distortion, like that negative bias. You just anticipate it to be
So
terrible. So I honestly was expecting like open credit of like 72. I
so
was
it's funny
shocked when it was close to an 80.
it's funny you say this because I think if they released this last fall when they intended to initially, this would have got a 72. I think these extra 6 months
Oh
of
yeah,
polish probably help just to say this was a good functioning game. And if you now compare it to Star Wars Outlaws, I've now been seeing a ton of forums where people are saying, "Hey, this is actually deep down underneath all the bullshit performance issues. This is a good game." So I think people are also, like you said, that bias had great. Take the extra month or a couple months to polish, and I'm glad they did it.
yeah. I feel like this is what's happening to a lot of games because games, at least I'm not a developer, but this is what I hear when I watch YouTube videos, is that games really come together late. Like near the end, like in the
Yeah,
last couple months or last year. But now I feel like with how complicated graphics and physics and everything has become, really what used to seem like, oh, it's going to take 6 months to polish is more like a year.
yeah.
And so
Scope creep.
it's just really hard to give a realistic timeline because you think, oh, I can just polish in the last 2-3 months.
Yeah, that's no
You
longer
can't,
feasible.
because really you should be anticipating like
Yeah,
9 months to a year of polish, which is crazy because that means your game should be pretty much really well playable
yeah.
a year
And a
before
year
you
before,
want it to be
which
released.
think about like Nintendo when they released Tears of the Kingdom. They said they admitted they had the game in a year prior. They took a full 12 months to polish the game, and
Yeah.
that was a big game. And like that's insane to me. That boggles my mind that they didn't even talk about release dates until 2 to 3 months in
Yeah.
advance. It was like
But
what?
I think both studios and developers and publishers should really kind of start changing the way they view things. Like, look at movies, right? We hear about, oh, this movie, they're shooting it, and then they get done shooting it. And how long does it take until that movie actually comes
Yeah,
out?
it takes a
Like, they'll
while.
shoot it, and they'll be. It's like, okay, you shot it in like 2 months. Now we have to wait
2 years.
2.5 years
Which
for it to be released,
like
right?
guys, I just hate to come on. This is a side tangent, but goddamn, Matt Reeves and fucking Batman. Like, why the fuck is
Or
that thing
Spider Man,
or
the new
Spider-Man?
animated one.
Yeah,
Like,
like,
oh
oh
my
my god,
god, that's gonna
they
take.
just announced
I know.
2027.
I know.
Why? You
That's
don't even
insane.
it's a
But
CGI
this
movie.
is my point. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there were kind of a lot of rewrites and a lot of
Sure.
screw ups and stuff like that. I still think the movie will deliver. But my point being is like really I feel like it used to be that when the game is in a pretty good playable state, then it's just bug fixes
Yeah,
and
it
you're
was just
good.
close to release.
But now I almost see it like more like a Hollywood movie. Like, okay,
Mhm.
you've just shot it, that's it, right? Like
Yeah.
now the editing starts, and really the movie comes together on the cutting floor,
Yeah, exactly.
right? And same thing now with video games. So,
Yeah.
but and I guess that brings us into talking about Ubisoft
Yeah,
in large because I was not expecting that 10 cent like 1.5 billion pouring in.
Yeah, so there was rumors in the last several months about Ubisoft potentially trying to have some sort of buyout by Tencent specifically because they had already invested in them in them prior. And so what happened was Ubisoft spun off a separate subsidiary, and they decided to take three of their most important IPs, which were Far Cry, Assassin's Creed, and Rainbow Six. And Tencent bought a 25% stake in that, and they want to use this collaborative partnership to market their three biggest games. And it's interesting to me because there was like a list of like 10 to 15 other IPs they didn't include in this. I wonder if they're all of a sudden going to start selling those off.
Yeah, I was surprised about some of the things they didn't include. Like, what was it, like Division, Watch Dogs,
Rayman.
Yeah.
What's the stealth game that everyone loves? Splinter Cell.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, shocking.
Fairly big stuff. And I mean, I don't know how I feel about it. Like, I'm actually happy that like Ubisoft isn't dead and buried. Even though a lot of people want them dead and buried, because these are pretty good IPs,
Yeah,
man. And even if you're hating now, like a lot of people were hating, there was a time when you loved Ubisoft, right?
Yeah.
And you had a great time playing those games. So I don't want them to go away.
It's just they grew and they became bloated.
Yeah, I think they really need to change how they make games, because these 40, 50-hour loaded games are just not coming.
But that's the thing. The three IP that they decided to not save, but like take over to this venture are all open world games now. Like Far Cry is now a open world game, and it has been for a while. But like Far Cry 7 was a large game, and from what I'm hearing, the rumor is the next one's going to be just as big or bigger.
Yeah.
So to me, they're going to keep having this problem where they have to have a focused development team or multiple teams in multiple regions. And if it fails, guess what? We're shutting down like this studio, this studio, and this studio. So it just their model doesn't seem to work well. And maybe they should scale back a little bit on some of these games, make a traditional linear game, make a 10-hour game.
Well, that's why I like the idea of like Assassin's Creed Mirage, but like I kind of get the sense that Prince of Persia was one of the things they wanted to test out to see how successful that model is. And, I don't know. I feel like it probably didn't sell as well as they had hoped, because, it got great reviews. I started playing it like it's a solid game.
It's
it didn't seem to catch the type of traction they were looking for.
Yeah.
And so now I think they're also kind of wary of trying out those $40, $50 video game experiments, right? That are smaller in scope.
Well, the game went on sale literally months later, which was insane to me. I bought the game for like 25.
I think people just they didn't want that genre right then,
Sure.
Because you have Metroid, you have Castlevania, you have all these other games that have come out.
Well, I don't think people were expecting this type of Prince of Persia game. Like they wanted a core Prince of Persia game to come back to the roots. They announced the remake a year prior. And by the way, by developers in India, ultimately they said, never mind, we're taking this back because it doesn't look good and the reception was bad. And so people wanted just either a pure remake or a new entry in the series. So this is great to do the spin-offs, but you only do it when your brand is healthy. So those are supplemental games. Those aren't supposed to be your core. Like this 2D platform wasn't meant to be their core.
Yeah, if you think about it, like the only people who really remember Splinter Cell are old. They have kids.
Exactly.
And so, like, what's really gonna drag them back in to play?
Funny that you mentioned that, though. They're literally making an animated series now for Splinter Cell, and I wonder if they're going to cancel it now.
I mean, you never know. Like, if anime really does it well, it can honestly revitalize a franchise.
True.
Like, look at Cyberpunk. Right?
Yeah, that was definitely.
And if the Prince of Persia anime is fire, then people are going to be really clamoring for video games. So. But yeah, I know Microsoft doesn't have unlimited pockets, and I know right now it's kind of a strange time for them, with the tariffs and all those things. But I was surprised. I was like, man, you couldn't pay $2 billion to get those three franchises in Game Pass all the time. Oh my god!
But
you would think Microsoft would be salivating at the idea of having every Assassin's Creed along with every Call of Duty on Game Pass day one.
And again, Far Cry it speaks to a very big sector of their core audience. And I think
Xbox gamers love shooters, right?
Yeah. So I feel like they should have, and if they don't, obviously they can still get in. That's only 25% stake to Tencent. I don't think they will, but could they snatch up the other IP? Sure, for sure. Why not pick up some of those other smaller ones and throw them on?
Look, I get it. Like, if it's a 25% stake, then you do the math. Do they want to spend, $6 billion? Okay, I kind of get it. Think about what you got for Bethesda, right? Spending as much as they spent $8 billion or something like that. So I get the money, but like, couldn't you find a way to make a deal to make them all day one Game Pass without owning them?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I mean, it's not that it's always nice to have more games on Game Pass, but I'm happy enough with what I have that I don't need Microsoft to do that. I'm just surprised they didn't because, you know, it seems that they like swooping in when a company is getting a lot of bad PR, right?
Sure.
What they did with Bethesda and
And
Activision.
Activision.
So it seemed like, hey, if, Ubisoft is in that exact right moment for you to, kind of
They
sneak in.
they do it because they know that's when they're worth
Yeah.
the
Because
least,
they're
right?
undervalued, right?
Undervalued at that point, and they go, look, we know this is gonna get any much worse. They'll take the PR hit, and they say, hey, we're coming in as heroes. That's all we're doing. We don't need to do anything. I'm okay with that. I don't care as long as the IP survive. Like you said, these are great games. I don't give a fuck about. I'll be honest with you, the Guillermo family. They've abused their power for so long, but at this point, all that matters is two things: stop. If you're going to simplify your development process, stop hiring a bunch of people, then to fire them a year or two later. Stop doing that. Scale down slightly, and then get a better development pipeline. And then second thing, just save the IP that people want. So I do think they should really focus on Splinter Cell. I think that's a mature game. Like if you look at Death Stranding or Metal Gear, right? Like those have been successful coming back, and I see Splinter Cell in that genre.
They gotta time it right because there is a desire for that type of spy game, which I know we're going to talk about later, but like Project 07, right? And then you have Hitman. Look at how good Hitman's been doing. Look at look at how people are getting hyped up for Perfect Dark.
Yeah.
Even Cyberpunk, when they had more of that spy feel, like that was hype. So really, that is a part of the video game industry that's being neglected.
Yeah, it's neglected.
And like, Splinter Cell now would be fire, but if you release it right after like Perfect Dark and Project 07, then people kind of be like, I played enough spy games. So
it's funny
they should really be getting on the ball now.
Well, the last core Splinter Cell game they released, which I think was 360, which was called Blacklist.
Blacklist, yeah, I think
that was really, I don't say revolutionary, but I remember people talking about it because of the core stealth mechanics they introduced in the game. They were like, oh my god, this was so good, because around the time Metal Gear came out just before. So everyone was like, "Oh, we have something on the 360. Now we have something on the PS3." Yeah. Like that. Isn't was it kind of sad to think
that like if they had just kept on it, they could have potentially. I mean, I'm not saying it's that easy to replicate Metal Gear Solid, but even if you had half the success of Metal Gear Solid, oh my god, you would be happy.
The crazier thing is they announced they were remaking Splinter Cell. Like, was it 3 years ago now? 4 years ago? We haven't heard anything since, and I feel like they scrapped it, or they had probably.
And I know Microsoft. If Microsoft's going to swoop in at any point, I would have expected them to really salivate over Assassin's Creed. But really, I think I could see them make a play for Splinter Cell, because Splinter Cell has enough brand recognition when it comes to Xbox, like with Chaos Theory and things like that.
Yeah.
That it seems like a good fit. And I feel like it would really help the repertoire of Game Pass, and they could. And if it fails, at least it goes into Game Pass, so you can kind of cushion, the loss financially. So, I could totally see Microsoft trying to make a play for that.
Well, so again, the rumors, and I think this is probably true, is that Ubisoft has already been talking to Microsoft. So there was like a protest, or supposed to be a protest by a company representing a lot of the smaller shareholders and of Ubisoft, because they weren't notified that Ubisoft had been talking to, I think it was, I want to say Warner Brothers and Microsoft already. And obviously then they announced the deal with Tencent slightly after. So Microsoft had already been in talks with them the last several months. The question is, why didn't they come to an agreement? No idea.
Yeah, I mean, it must have been a money thing.
Yeah, it must have been a money thing. So maybe they thought they were worth less than they really were. Or they didn't want the partnership with again, Guillermo, because there have been other like allegations.
I bet you that was it. I bet you they didn't want Guillermo involved. Yeah. I think Microsoft just wanted
they just
to take over.
And
because if you think about it, like they're opening themselves up to liability as well, right? Because like then they don't have full control.
Yeah,
right?
Which is why when they took Activision, the deal they made with Bobby Kotick is like, as soon as you take a couple months, you're out. Like, you can't do this.
And I know Microsoft gets a lot of flack, but overall, like I'm pretty happy with the direction like Bethesda and Activision and Blizzard has gone into, and a lot of the flack we give Microsoft for those companies, I feel like they're based off of decisions that were a long time coming. Like Redfall, like come on, like how did no one notice at any point in their development, where this thing was going? That there should have been somebody
a gate
doing something a lot.
There should have been a gated process, but That one's like they knew, they just kept it under like
Yeah,
the carpet or the radar, and they're just like, we're gonna
yeah.
fleece our customers for now.
And if Starfield, I think an 85 game is still solid.
Yeah,
Starfield was great to me. Did it live up to the hypes of the rest of
sure.
Bethesda? No, but it's still solid, and can't really say that's Microsoft's fault.
Yeah,
I think Doom looks fire.
that looks really
I
good.
think that looks amazing.
Kudos to greenlighting that project for
Yeah.
them because that was after they were
Yeah,
acquired.
Indiana Jones.
Indiana
That looks
Jones.
great.
Yeah.
That was I thought that was a pretty good game. So really, I think the only misstep when it comes to Bethesda has been kind of it's been a little weird about what's platform exclusive and not, but
Yeah.
it seems like that's pretty much going to be resolved and everything is just going to go everywhere.
Yeah.
And then the next thing is going to be Hi-Fi Rush, and I still hold that against Microsoft. That sucked. That hurt, but I guess it just really people didn't love it that much,
Yeah.
And I think I was reading somewhere about how well like those ports sold,
Yeah.
and oh god, I think Sea of Thieves sold like crazy on the PS5,
Crazy.
and I want to say like Hi-Fi Rush, they were reportedly saying it sold like 150,000 or
That's
something.
it. Wow.
Yeah, so I mean,
So there's not a yeah. Again, it's not a marketing thing, maybe it is, but that game, there's just not an appetite for that specific game, and that's okay. I like we can live with that. I enjoyed it for what it was. I'm glad they got a chance. It was a small group that worked on it. So be it. But I think Microsoft has done good enough that had they taken over any of these IPs, I would have been hopeful that something good would have came out of their leadership with that. So
yeah, and the thing is, I know they closed down studios in Bethesda, but it's kind of the name of the game when it comes to the industry. Like I give Microsoft a B overall when it comes to Bethesda. There's things I'm
100%.
unhappy about, but I was pretty satisfied with Starfield and with the Indiana Jones, and I'm super hyped for Doom.
Yeah,
so that's good enough. And with Activision Blizzard, I mean, I'm happy that now we're actually getting other things like Tony Hawk, even though I'm sure that's a long time coming. But they haven't really screwed up anything that bad yet.
Yeah, I agree.
So I guess we'll wait and see. Now, other things to talk about. Do you want to go straight into the Switch, or something else on your mind?
Before we do that, there's a couple of shows we've been watching, which we really just want to talk about really quickly, and then we'll hit the big news.
Dun, dun, dun. So I guess I'll start with what I've been watching. Wheel of Time. So I'm not entirely caught up. I've only seen the first 4 episodes, and I think they're on episode 5, soon to be 6. But man, like
cancel the show, end it. It's horrible.
I mean,
it's bad as Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power.
No, it's way better. I think I was telling my cousin because I told him like I'm watching it, and really enjoying it. He was like, "Dude, what's wrong with you? Like this game, I started watching the first season and it wasn't great." And I was like, honestly, like even if you say the first season was a 6 and the second season was a 7, even though I would rate the second season higher than the 7, this is a solid 8. And so like this is what I like seeing. Like really, season after season, the show was getting better. Like the writers, the actors, they're noticing the things that weren't fitting, and they're addressing them, and it's just working. The biggest problem with Wheel of Time is the books are just way too big, and so when things feel rushed, I look, online like, hey, like what did everyone think about this? And it's usually because they're trying to condense a whole book into like 6 episodes, and the book's like 1,000 pages.
Which to me, the writing I see on the wall is they won't adapt all the books, and instead this will be like my gut feeling will be like a 6-season show, and they'll condense all 12.
Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do. I mean, in this season they're doing some things out of order. Like if I'm remembering, there's book 3 and book 4, they're kind of doing that a little out of order. But it's 12 books that are 1,000 pages.
I'm telling you, this is going to be like a 6-season show, and they will have a conclusive ending that will be somewhat different from the books, but they'll be like, hey, we did as best as we could, because it's not feasible. You don't just pilot a show like that based off a 12-book series and be like, oh, we didn't think this would be popular enough to keep moving forward.
I feel like what they're hoping for is, by the time it gets into season 3 or season 4, people are going to love it so much that they're just going to spread the news like hot fire. And then, because with Game of Thrones, I remember I was, watching it in season 1 and season 2, and no one knew what it was. And I was like, guys, this is good. This is good. Sure. And then finally, like season 3 and 4 came out. And then people are like, okay, well, if my buddy is saying it's a good show, even if it's 4 seasons in, like I'll invest, But then, I mean, Game of Thrones really that show needed to be 9 or 10 seasons, So I don't know if they would do 6. I feel like they're shooting for 8. I feel like they're shooting for 8 or 9,
We'll see.
and they'll see how successful they are, and if they're successful, maybe they'll stretch it out. But
I
12 seasons is insane. That's like if you do even one a year, that's 12 years.
Yeah, it's just
And
not
if you
feasible.
don't, that's and
Well,
I think it's taking them like 2 years to do
yeah.
a season. Dude, that's like 20 years, man.
Yeah, well, first of all, the actors will renegotiate their deals. They won't stay long unless they get paid more money. And B,
They'll look so different by
yeah,
the time you're at the end of the show.
yeah, well, that, and then the other thing is that, like, what is this? So you said 12 bucks. Yeah, oh yeah, the other thing is it's Amazon. So the production value is probably already high. They're probably wasting a ton of
Dude, the
money.
production, I don't know how much they're spending, but man, this show looks amazing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's the same problem with Rings of Power. They know they're losing money on it, but Jeff Bezos, because he loves Lord of the Rings so much, he doesn't care. So he's like, I'm going to let this go until we tell the full story. Which, if he's also involved with Rings of Power, it's probably the same thing. Fine,
Yeah.
we'll go 8 seasons or 10 seasons because we have money to burn. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
So that's the only good thing going for it, is that we might get a complete story only for the fact that.
Yeah, I mean, I would really hate the fact if we got like 5, 6 seasons in and they wanted to do more, and then they just pull the plug. Because for big shows like this, like you really have to build on yourself,
Yeah.
you know, and like it's going to make a big difference if the showrunners are like, okay, do I have 6 seasons to this or 8
Yeah,
or
of course.
10? You know,
You
it
try to
makes
plan
huge
a little
difference.
ahead, but they still go season by season. So like when this season ends,
You
they're
never
gonna
know.
go. Well, no,
Yeah.
no. What
No,
I'm
I
saying,
mean, like when the season ends, it's like, are we going to get another one? I don't know.
well, what they do is they go back to the writing room and they start to write a lot of what the next season should be. So they don't. Could they have things planned for several seasons ahead of time? A little bit, but then they take it one season at a time and they flesh it out. So they don't even care about season 5, 6, and 7 or 8 right now. They're just like, once we get to the end of season 3, we'll get back to the writers' room to write season 4.
Probably.
And then they write their cliffhangers. So I just think, look, you have to also remember Amazon has jack shit. So this is only one. This is one thing going for them.
I don't know. They've gotten better shows.
I don't know, Jack Reacher.
People love Jack Reacher. I've never watched it, but people love Jack Reacher. You gotta watch Invincible, dude.
Yeah, Invincible.
Yeah, I think if you watched Invincible, your opinion on Amazon would change.
Look, Invincible, Jack Reacher, and Wheel Time is not enough to like. I think Apple TV is better. In my opinion, I think they have more shows.
I mean,
that are higher quality.
I think
good
if you're
storytelling.
looking, I think if you're looking objectively, then yeah, Apple TV would be better. I like Amazon Prime better, and that's probably because I don't like Severance, and that's the biggest show there, and I'm never gonna finish it. So that's like a huge, to me, that's like a huge draw for the service. I love Ted Lasso. I loved Shrinking. Those are like my favorite shows.
Silo. And
Silo's pretty good, but I don't think I want to watch the second season. And Foundation is good too, but I like Wheel of Time way more. So,
but yeah, so I think I'm gonna watch it. It's on my list next.
Dude, you're gonna watch Invincible, and then you're gonna be like, man, I love Prime Video. Prime Video is the best.
So yeah, anything else about Wheel of Time?
I guess the one thing that's kind of surprised me, and maybe for people who have actually read the books, I didn't realize how dark it was. Like, my wife sometimes is like, "Oh my God, what are you watching?" Because when it's bloody, it's really, really bloody and gory, and there is a lot of death. And some of the evil entities it's almost like horror level. I'm like, oh my God, these are like some creepy ass people. Like, what is going on? Nice. So that I did not expect that. Like, I thought it would be more lighthearted. Like, I think Lord of the Rings, even though there's dark elements like Sauron and the orcs and stuff like that,
no one is scary.
The thing is, it's lighthearted because of Frodo and the dwarves and the camaraderie and stuff like that. So it's kind of like that balance. But
they have the ancient evils and like Rings of Power when they go in the woods. But even that is like, it's like,
but man, like Wheel of Time gets dark. So and you saw the second season, right?
No, I need to start watching.
Oh man, okay, yeah. Catch up and we'll talk.
Okay. Is that anything else?
No. I mean, I am looking forward to the rest of the season. So
okay, yeah, I'm hoping I can start season 2 in a couple months here and finish it by summer, so I can finish season 3 by the end of the summer or something like that. I'm always haphazardly jumping between different shows on different platforms. So it all just depends on my mood.
Just have a drink and convince yourself you're watching Severance. Play the background music, and then you'll fly through the show.
Yeah, that's true. I actually flew through Severance. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly talk about Severance 2. Obviously, for those that don't know, Severance season 2 just ended on basically a cliffhanger as well. Interesting season. I really love season one only because it kind of came out of the blue for me, and then it captivated me a little more. So when I came to season two, I had my hopes were like really high, but it started off slow. So I'm just trying to level set with everyone here. The biggest takeaway to me specifically, I want to talk about some spoilers here too, is that we finally understand what the severance procedure is, who invented it. We get a better understanding of Miss Casey, the therapist that we meet in season one, and what drives I Mark and O Mark's motivations for like why they're doing what they're doing, whether it's inside, like when the Severance building, or outside in their personal life. So that finally picked up in the second half of the season. So it did take a while to get there. So pacing was uneven. Overall, though, I think the reveal of it was anticlimactic a little bit. Like it was like not, it wasn't super simple, but it was also like okay, like I was expecting grander things, and maybe there still will be some of that in the later seasons. But the climax, I felt like we hit the climax. So overall, performance on the last episode was really good. And then there was the episode, I think episode 7, where we get the backstory of Mark's wife specifically. That was well shot, one of the best choreographed, and the cinematography was like top notch that I've ever seen in any show, like on God, for real, for real.
Who are you, bro?
So that was good too. But overall, I'd have to give maybe the season like an 8. But every season that ended, like every episode that ended, always had me wanting more every week. So the way they ended every episode on a cliffhanger, perfect. So I think overall, I'm excited for season 3. They did confirm there's a season 3 coming, and I'm not going to talk too much about the show because, again, for those that haven't seen it, just go watch it for yourself. It's hard for me to explain it because there really is like an interesting vibe that you get from just watching and experiencing it, because it's the way the show is filmed and the way the characters interact. So I just don't really want to talk about it too much because me explaining it objectively doesn't give a good idea and
Yeah.
to why I
It's just
really,
kind of a unique thing.
it's a
Like
unique
you
thing.
gotta check it out. I mean, for me, like I think I recommended the show. Or, no, I think you
No, I
recommended
didn't.
this to me, and then I
Yeah.
watched it. and I was like, yeah, dude, you should watch it. I had some concerns with the first season, but overall, I was pretty happy with it. Um, but at the same time, like after the first season was done, and maybe this is just a me thing, but I don't know, like I I was expecting a lot from the beginning of season two because the first season ended in a really interesting place, and after the pacing just felt so slow in the beginning of the second season. I was like, I personally don't like that kind of show where it's like, all right, it's gonna be an 8 hour like season because there's multiple episodes, so just feed me little morsels throughout to keep me placated until I finally get a reveal, and I'm just like it just feels kind of exhausting to me that
Yeah.
it's like now
It's
season three
fair.
is going to come. You built up the hype at the end of season two, and now I know the beginning of season three is not going to feel like a roller coaster. It's going
Yeah.
to be really slow again. It's going to
Yeah.
be a slow burn. It's like, okay, now I have to wait,
Yeah.
until finally things get interesting again.
I agree.
And for me, like I think that's one of the challenges in a TV show, right? Because if every season is going to follow that same arc that a movie has, right? Where like the beginning it's slowly building up, then you hit your climax, then you hit a resolution. Like it's one thing if it's a movie, but if every season follows that, it's like okay, this is the most off the wall example, but and I don't know why, but I'll never forget this moment. Okay, Entourage. All right.
I still haven't finished it. You got me to
Okay,
start it.
so I love that show. That was one of my favorite shows of all time. And I remember I was like a lot younger when I saw it. And I at this point, it's not even spoilers. If you're gonna watch it, you're gonna watch it by now. But I remember like the whole thing is by he's an actor and they're always trying to make money and then they overspend their money and then they're kind of screwed and stuff like that. So I remember I was like, okay, by the end of the season, like there's all been all this tension, all this funny stuff happened, like things worked out with his Aquaman movie or whatever, and then it's like, okay, like finally they've grown, they've learned, and the next season starts and it's like, well now we have to create some artificial problems because we tidied things up too much, and now it's like really I'm following the same plot arc as the last season, repeated again. I mean, it was a funny show, so I didn't care, But then it's like this artificial thing that like story writers do when they're writing TV shows, which is just and books kind of do this too if you think about it. Like I was just remember reading like the second Hunger Games book, and I couldn't I couldn't finish it because for me the beginning of the second Hunger Games book just really dragged
Yeah.
because I was like, I've already done this whole arc, and now it's like I have to repeat the arc again.
Right.
So, but who knows? You know,
sometimes when you get too much of something good, it just
yeah.
becomes draining.
But I mean, I'll agree with you. Like the writing when it comes to acting and stuff like that, and the characters, like they do a phenomenal job. Like,
Well, especially because they're playing every character's playing two personalities. So you have to switch on and on. And they're not similar, you know. They really do a good job of portraying.
And the way they sell it is based off of their acting, right?
Yeah.
Because if they didn't, show the nuances, we wouldn't really know.
Yeah, we wouldn't know.
Wouldn't care. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's a good show. I guess it's not for me.
That's fair. That's fair. Again, I felt the same way about Rings of Power. I loved season 1, but I just didn't. Season 2 didn't resonate with me.
Yeah.
It took me forever to finish that. So I understand that. There's one other show we really want to talk about really quickly too. So Solo Leveling, for those that don't know, that's an anime. It's based off a manhwa, Korean anime, or Korean comic, and I think we've talked about this in the past, but season 2 just finished. It's the most liked anime now on Crunchyroll, ahead of One Piece and JJK. Honestly,
that's
season
insane.
2 was so good. Like, this is insane. So for some context, season 1, originally when it came out 2 years ago, was supposed to be 25 episodes. They decided to split it into 2 cowers, and instead of releasing them back to back, they did season 1 of 12 episodes, and they took a 1.5 year break, and they beefed up the animations because they realized so many people loved season 1. And not in a, oh my god, this is the best anime. They just noticed that the popularity was there.
Yeah.
So they decided to put more effort in season 2, and my god, did it pay off. Like, every episode was a banger. And pacing was really fast, is what I noticed here. So almost every 3 episodes covered an arc, which was utterly insane how fast this season blew by and how much info it covered in the light novel and the manhwa. But overall, it worked well because, again, I think we've said this in the past, this show really is like a turn your brain off type of anime. It's a very simple concept. You're just leveling up and you're working towards a specific goal. And, like, it doesn't have to be complex like JJK, where people were like, oh my god, and then the shadows came, and then I activated my asshole no jutsu, and then of course I was gonna beat this guy because of physics and gravity. It was like, no, it's not that. Like, it's like fucking not that at all. So I like animations were top notch. The acting was great. The voice acting was like just up there. And then I don't know. I think it was like so good that, like, they did the same thing that Severance did. The cliffhangers. They always ended it on a crazy note, and as soon as it would like get to a really high like ending, boom, you hit the ending song, and they did it on purpose, like for every single episode. So honestly, like, they knocked it out of the park. There hasn't been a confirmation of season 3. I could see this series going to 4 or 5 seasons, but yeah, I was just super excited, man. I think they did a great job, and this is honestly one of my favorite series of all time.
I mean, I don't think I've heard anyone say anything bad about Solo Leveling. I don't know. I feel like this is just a me thing. I'm not trying to be a big hater today, but I just can't get into shonen anymore. Like, the older I've gone, like, I feel like I got through Naruto, I got through like Bleach, Dragon Ball Z, like that filled that need for me, that niche. And like at this point, like anytime I watch a shonen, I'm just like, all right, well, this is the leveling up part. This is the kicking ass part, you know. And I'm just like, I've seen it so much.
Yeah, you're burnt out.
I'm burnt out, you know. I think if I give myself enough time, you know, then I'll be like, oh no, I really want shonen. But like even like the old animes, they're still bringing them out. You know, like One Piece is still going on. Bleach has their new season. You know, like they're remaking One Piece even though One Piece hasn't finished. So like at the same time, like I guess I have a less of a desire to even experience new shonen because the shonen I grew up with are still kind of a thing. You know?
Yeah, it's still a thing. I mean, you know, I swap back and forth because I haven't seen a good balance for an anime. Like, I would say the last anime that I thought had a good balance was like 9 years ago. That was My Hero Academia. But then that story slowly, for me, fell off a cliff because they didn't end it like in a good spot. Like,
yeah, I gave up on that show, and I'll never forget when. And my cousin always makes fun of me and tells me to get back into it. But it was the gentle villain.
Oh God, that was the worst. That was the worst arc.
As soon as I got there, I was like, I can't. And everyone has told me to just skip that arc, but I'm just like, God, I just can't. I just can't.
And it's not motivating enough to be like, well, I can. Again, don't get me wrong, the show is good, but that was the less balanced anime I found. So either we find anime that's super complex, like an Attack on Titan or something else, or you get, which Attack on Titan, don't get me wrong, that's like up there for me too. Like, I'll remember that show. or you got again simple tropish anime like a Solo Leveling or a Naruto or a Bleach. Even Bleach is a simple story to me. Like it's greatly animated, it coming back the
It's
way it
just,
was.
I mean, a lot of these
It's
stories
just
are a bad guy,
yeah,
power up with friendship
yeah.
and trading and beat him.
That's it.
That's most of the shows. So yeah, I'm trying to think back to the last great anime I really talked a lot about.
I mean, Attack on Titan for me, that's what it was.
What I think it was probably Vinland Saga season 2
Oh
for
yeah,
me.
I still
don't
haven't
know if
watched
there's
that
been
yet.
anything else recent that I really liked. I think it's been a
Oh,
little while since
sorry.
Cyberpunk.
Pluto.
Pluto was great. Yeah, Pluto was freaking
There was
fantastic.
nuance to that.
You know, I'm happy you brought it up because I feel like I sound like a hater a lot. But you know, but Pluto was freaking fantastic.
Yeah,
that was a great.
That was the last one. So sorry, that's like a year and a half ago. But besides,
But yeah, I, like we were talking about with animes, it's either the shonen or those like really deep shows that like really make you think, you know. And I feel like I get burnt out on the shonen after a while, but like those deep shows that are kind of gems,
once in a while,
you know, I still want to find one and I want to watch
because
one.
we don't get enough of it. So I'm okay with like every.
And
year.
I kind of haven't liked, you know, how a lot of anime in general have. I don't know, like a lot of the new shows I'm seeing, I'm just like, what's going on? You know, like I know.
Well, like so another show that was really great, like 8-9 years ago. It's called ReZero. And it is a great anime, but now they're finally on season 3. It's been so many years, and it's just the same thing now over and over again. I'm like, it started off like such a great concept, and it can't deliver. And it's just like, man, like you cannot find something consistent.
I remember like, maybe I'll get flagged for this, but like my cousin loves Shield Hero, and I couldn't get into Shield. I couldn't get into Shield Hero. He loves Shield Hero, and I know I've seen a few episodes here and there. I was like, yeah, it's good. It's just like I don't have the desire to finish the show. Yeah. Like I'll watch a show here and there with him, and I'll be like, yeah, this is good, this is funny, but
there's not,
you know.
So yeah, again, Pluto for me. I gotta put that up at the top too. It's Pluto and Attack on Titan.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like Netflix has kind of been showing up. You know, like
there's a couple of new animes that Netflix is getting in the next month or two. I think one's called Moonrise. So it looks like it looks like an original anime. And then they're making an anime based off a manga from like 30 years ago. I forgot what it's called. I was just looking it up, and that looks good too. So it's like, okay, Netflix, you're trying to get really into that space and carve out your own niche there and say this is exclusive now to Netflix. So we'll see.
Yeah, they really doubled down on anime. Like I remember a while back when I first started seeing animes pop up, and I think I like first saw Naruto pop up. Yeah. I was like, oh, thank God. You know, I don't have to use these shitty websites anymore. Like, it's actually going mainstream. Yeah. And now you see, man, Netflix is really investing a lot into anime, right? Yeah. And don't they even have, like, a whole, like, day? Like, it was like Geek Day? Geek Day. And then they just, like, go ham on this stuff and they show it off.
But I feel like in the Geek Day or whatever, they show off a bunch of Netflix things. So it's even live action stuff and everything. But, there's a new Mobile Suit Gundam anime coming out next month, so it's their next.
You know, I love me my Gundam. Yeah.
But just to put this out there, I know Shamira isn't misogynist or anything, but the main character again is a woman.
I'm fine with. Okay, I didn't hate the Witch of Mercury because she was a woman.
I'm just saying.
I hated the Witch of Mercury because the show was not good.
I'm just putting it out there, prefacing it, because it's not a coincidence that the woman. Main character is a woman. You hated the show.
Okay, that was just the Witch of Mercury thing.
Yeah, so we'll see how that looks.
Hey, in my defense, I will say something that shows I'm not a misogynist, but also is a very unpopular opinion. I like Last of Us 2 over Last of Us 1.
That's because the main character looks like a guy. Right. Just kidding. Okay, fair enough. That's a good point.
Anyways.
So yeah, that's all I have on the show. So I guess we can now deep dive into the big stuff. So we'll talk about the Nintendo Switch 1 direct that came out a week prior to the Switch 2.
God, I feel like it's kind of hard to remember what happened.
Because it was ass, let's just be honest.
Well, I actually liked it better than you did. And I think that's because I had really low expectations. And I was just happy to see more Pokemon and Metroid.
I was too. Like, I'll start with this. So there was only 3 or 4 things that interested me in the Switch 1 direct. So first of all, the first thing they showed, Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D remake. Super excited for that. The Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D remake just came out on the Switch, sold really well, like 5 million units. Looks great. I played a little bit of it already. Now, I've already heard from some of my friends that by the end of it, it's still grindy, very grindy, but they have a lot of quality of life improvements that can make it zoom by really fast. I personally think just seeing this now, and they're doing the same with 1 and 2, is that dude, Square Enix needs to go back to like Final Fantasy 6 and 5 and
Oh
all these
yeah,
other and do the HD 2D remakes, man. Like it's honestly nuts. And I also look at this from a
just lost money on the table.
yeah, it's selling well, and also it's greatly like it just fits well on a portable system. A, but B, I think Pokemon should do the same thing. Like again, when I said scope creep, Pokemon's getting too large, and their developers are clearly not competent to make open world games. Go back to the HD 2D style. Just give me, even if it's a spin off game, I just want that style. It looks so beautiful. So yeah, I'm excited about Dragon Quest 1 and 2. And then they showed up Marvel Comic or Cosmic Invasion.
Yeah. Wasn't that from the people who made
That Teenage
TMNT?
Mutant, yeah, which I played that
was
came
good.
out.
That
Yeah,
was good.
and I played that TMNT game a year ago on Xbox. Phenomenal game. It was very short.
We played it together.
Did we play it?
Yes.
Okay, I played it twice
You
then.
forgot.
So sorry, I played it with another set of friends and I beat it
Oh,
with
the
them. Okay.
betrayal.
Yeah, and then I beat it with you too. So it was a great game, and I think they're the right people to do it because from a sound perspective, they had great music for the TMNT game. Bringing back this old style was good. Graphically, it looked well and it performed well. So this actually looks good too because using the Marvel license, I'm like, dude, you had Venom, you had Spider Man, you had what else? Like, who else was in the show? Oh, Wolverine.
Yeah, that's gonna be hype, man. People love that stuff. I mean, people love Marvel versus Capcom.
Yeah,
and like to this day, whenever me and Juby try to play any arcade games, the one she's always down to play is Marvel versus Capcom.
That's surprising. I'm surprised she really likes.
Yeah, she really likes that one because I think it's like the character recognition and like the characters feel varied enough, and she's just gonna spam all the buttons. Anyway.
Yeah,
she always has a good time.
It's funny you say that because my nephew does this, and I have the game now, and he just spams the button. He can actually beat me just spamming, literally, like clicking the button. And then two other things. So again, they showed off some additional gameplay of Pokemon Legends ZA, which I was kind of surprised they did that because we just had the Pokemon Direct.
Yeah.
Again, it looks more interesting, I think, in this trailer than the previous one. I am a little excited for it, but what I'm starting to notice, and I saw some breakdown videos on YouTube, and I think people did a great job, is, man, the textures look so flat on the buildings. Like, this is supposed to be reminiscent of Paris, and people found the exact place in Paris right near the Eiffel Tower where this is, like, taken from, in Lumino City. And god damn it, like, the buildings are horribly flat, and I'm just like, fuck, like, I can't.
You gotta play it on the Switch too then, right?
Yeah, I know. And then they showed Metroid Prime 4, and they revealed that Samus is going to have psychic powers in this game, which I was like shocked.
I felt like the reveal of that felt flat. You know, I actually really liked the Metroid Prime 4 trailer and the gameplay overall. I actually think it is it's a step up graphically from the remastered version, and I was surprised to see they were able to get more juice out of the original Switch. You know, because I really thought Metroid Prime Remastered was like as good as it got.
Yeah.
So that was good. I thought the gameplay felt so much more fluid than Remastered. I couldn't beat Remastered because I felt like it was a little clunky, but that looked good to me. But just the way the narrator was talking about the powers,
dude,
like, it's such a big deal.
You can open doors and move. And
oh my god!
It's like, can't anyone with a hand open doors?
And I'm so surprised because Nintendo does such a great job marketing and with their trailers. I was like,
how did this?
I was like, this is just.
That's definitely a retro thing. Like the developers themselves definitely put that together, and it was like.
Like if they just showed the gameplay and didn't have that voiceover in that moment, it would have been better. It was just the juxtaposition of the two.
It was so dumb.
And having played Metro games, like I know it's going to be a nice ability, and they're going to really use the crap out of it, and it's going to really make you scratch your head. So I'm not scared the game won't be good, and I'm not scared it's going to be a weird addition. It's just like the way they talked about it.
You can open doors and move objects. I can do that with my current set of hands and feet right now.
Shaking my head.
I was like,
you can literally can't Samus just go up there and grab the thing and move it?
It was dumb. So I honestly within this. Oh, and there's one other big game that was announced that I didn't give a fuck about, but Tamagotchi apparently is coming back in some.
People love Tamagotchi. That game is gonna sell like hotcakes.
Yeah, that's
think about Animal Crossing, how much that's Tamagotchi is gonna sell.
So I was like, oh my god.
But I think for me, the reason why the reveal last week still seemed pretty good, I had no expectations, and for literally the end of a generation, and such a long generation, after you fired that much, and let's say the Switch 2 was not coming out this year. If all you got this year was Pokemon Z and and then Metroid, people would still say this is a good year for the Switch, right? Yeah. and it's their last year
Yeah.
after what? This is their 8th year or
Yeah,
something crazy
here.
like that. Like I gotta give it up. Like that's a marathon, man.
That's
And I was just impressed. And so I'm already gonna scoop those two up.
yeah.
So then going into the Switch 2 reveal, I'm like, well, I'm already happy with what Nintendo is outputting this year. So
Yeah.
anything else I get is
It's
gonna be
just
icing on the
a
cake.
cake.
And
Yeah.
for me, like my hype has cooled down a little bit for the
Yeah.
Nintendo Direct
Sure.
that happened earlier today because I was kind of disappointed by some stuff that
Same.
maybe I hyped myself up too much, like Oblivion or like
Yeah.
a new Super Mario Odyssey 2 or something like that. But man, there was a lot of unexpected things for me.
Yeah, like let's start with there because you said Super Mario Odyssey. They announced Donkey Kong Bonanza, which looks interesting because to me the trailer looks so eerily reminiscent of the Mario Odyssey trailer that was revealed 8 years
Yeah.
ago. I'm putting my guess out there. I think it's the same team that made
I
it.
think they may have already.
They haven't
They
announced
haven't
it.
confirmed that
No.
it's the same team.
They always wait till like the day or month before.
I think
don't
it's
know
the
why.
same team.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it looks the same.
to me, I'm actually really happy Nintendo did that because I feel like Donkey Kong hasn't gotten a lot of love, and I think we were talking about
Yeah.
this, and I'm happy that they're trying to juice that up. And I think it's great timing because Super Mario Bros. The movie just came out. Donkey
Yeah.
Kong was in it.
And
You got a
then-
lot more
And
recognition.
Universal isn't there? Aren't they adding a
Universal,
Donkey
they're trying to
Kong?
make a whole Donkey Kong thing. So I
Yeah.
think that was one. And Donkey Kong has not been out of the limelight completely because
Yeah.
he's been a big part of Super Smash, right? So, and I think now it's time for that kind of renaissance and resurgence,
Yeah.
and I think it's going to sell really well.
Oh yeah.
And it doesn't have to compete with the Mario Odyssey, right?
Yeah.
So it just gets its own time to shine. And if it's going to be as polished as a Mario Odyssey game,
Yeah.
like that's really going to
Well-
help it sell well. And then the best thing to me is it's still a platformer like
Yeah.
Mario, right? But it's different enough that it's not going to feel repetitive.
That's the thing. So if you saw the abilities, they look different enough. They're like I can. So he like how Mario had Cappy or whatever in Odyssey. He's got like a diamond or like a gem on his shoulder talking to him. So it's like very similar. Now I think this does a couple of things. One is it doesn't put the burden on them to reinvent the wheel. So every time a new Mario game comes out, you have to constantly reinvent the wheel.
You have to find some new like mechanism.
Yeah,
and then, like,
it's there's a lot of pressure, right, to outdo yourself, even if they had 8 years. And I think they can start now baseline with this, and they can build on it. And I wouldn't be surprised with this one. They say, "Oh, we do want a sequel. We'll give that to you in 5 years, and you don't have to wait another generation." So I would be okay if they do Bonanza and then Bonanza 2 or something.
Yeah, and I wonder if I think it's the same. I don't even know what the studio names are for Nintendo.
They're all
wacky. They don't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
But the studio that made Odyssey, I would hope they could grow big enough that they can have multiple things cooking at the same time.
That would be nice. That would
right?
be nice.
And that would, oh man, we'd be eating good.
Yeah. And then, so the other thing is, one of my favorite childhood video games is Donkey Kong 64, which was it's not an open world, but it's like you hop from I think almost like island to island, and it was a full story narrative, and they even had multiplayer in it. So this was, again, eerily reminiscent of that. Now, will there be a good story in this game? Probably not. Odyssey didn't have a phenomenal story.
You don't need a great story.
Yeah, but and the Donkey Kong 64 did have a good story.
Really?
But at the same time, like I said, the gameplay to me is always king. So if they can just do a good job of making this game like a 20-hour game, it innovates on pre-existing stuff, but at the same time it gives a fresh take on their style of games, then yeah, I'm happy. And I'm pleasantly surprised July 17th. I wish it was there at launch, but
so with that said, I know there's so much to talk about. It's kind of dizzying, but I think maybe we can start with what stole the show for you? Out of everything you saw, what was it that was man, this is the best moment in the show?
Okay, that's a great question. I actually think, to be honest, it was the Donkey Kong Bonanza for me. And I was shocked that they announced Kirby Air Riders as well, only because you're getting a Mario Kart game. I looked up Kirby Air Ride, which came out, I think, I don't know if it was N64 or GameCube back in the day. And that's also a racing game.
And it kind of looks the same?
And it kind of looks the same. And it's I'm not shocked that they said Sakurai, because Sakurai is creating it, the guy who developed Super Smash.
Which I think is insane.
Yeah. But it's clear that they said, you pick whatever you want, and we're not going to say no, because that's coming out in this year too. So you have two redundant now racing games. So I was shocked they let him do that.
He must be doing something different. Yeah, it
Yeah,
has to be taken in a different direction.
I would think.
Or else, like, there's no way Nintendo will release them both in the same.
That's what I'm saying. It's weird. And like, think about this again. The last Super Smash game sold 45 million units.
Oh my
You have to
God.
expect that this Kirby game is going to be polished enough that people are going to think it's potentially mainstream.
Does
Like,
anyone know how much money Nintendo is just sitting on in
A
some
lot.
secret vault somewhere?
dude, these guys get paid really well.
Oh
Like,
my God, that's insane.
yeah. So I would say Donkey Kong Bonanza for me was the wow.
So my wow was the game from Software. You know, that blew my mind. I was like, oh
Exclusive.
my God, exclusive from Software. We got Bloodborne 2.
Yeah, literally
Essentially,
Bloodborne 2.
let's go. And by
But-
far and away, I was so hyped about it. And then now that hype has been died down because I realize
It's a multiplayer
it's
game.
a multiplayer game.
PvPvE.
Yeah, no, I'm good. And so I don't know. Maybe if it looks really insanely good, you know, I'll get it. But do I really want to get Nintendo
not
Switch
worth it.
online when I have Game Pass Ultimate
Yeah, it's
just
not
so I can play that? And oh man, that sucked because I was so hyped for it. So
Yeah.
I guess we'll see. I mean, I think it's going to sell like hotcakes
Sure.
because obviously, like From Software has been crazy successful and for good reason.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Elden Ring Night Rain is going to be crazy popular. But yeah,
I think, like, okay, so when they first announced it and I'm looking at the game, I'm like, wow, I can't believe this. And then it says, you know, it's exclusive to Switch. I'm like, there's no way. Like, how do they have multiple development teams really
yeah.
doing, like, all these games? You got the Night Rain, you got obviously Elden Ring with their DLC that just came up prior, and then this. And I was like, there's no way. This makes sense. You had a small team doing a multiplayer only
That's what I
component, and you could.
And
get
I think
that.
it's kind of far out.
Yeah,
You know,
it's-
because if Night Rain is coming out this year, and
they said this
honestly,
was 2026.
why is that not coming out on Switch 2?
Yeah, like
You
that
know?
should be a Switch 2.
Right?
thing, you know?
And it seems to me, and this was really the thing that blew my mind, like, I really want to know the teraflops and, you know, the processing power of the
output,
Switch
yeah.
2, because, man, it seems like every game that's come out on the PS5 and Xbox
Cyberpunk.
can run on the Switch.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, like, and if Elden Ring is coming out, and I would assume it's the same thing, I don't know if Tarnished Edition is different, but yeah, Night Rain should be able to run on it. And so then why would you not release it and
I
make more
think-
money? And then
I
if
think-
that's the case, like, wouldn't you want to release this new game like 2 years from now? Something like
Yeah,
that?
that's what I would think. So I think a lot of these third-party developers got the dev kits pretty late, and so I think the first thing From Software looked at was like, what can we do at the start where the hype is the highest to maximize profit? And I think it makes more sense to get Elden Ring first because everyone already loves the game,
Yeah.
right? And if you can, I think people would probably buy that more than a new IP that's been
yeah.
established. So I think they were smart to say, let's do Elden Ring first. Just my opinion.
Well, no, I agree with you, but I think that's the reason why I believe that game is far off. You know, because I don't think it makes sense to put them back
So
to
you think
back.
it's gonna be delayed
I think Elden Ring Night Rain is gonna come out on Switch 2.
before this?
Yeah, I mean, why would you not?
But they said this game's coming 2026.
Oh, they did say that?
Yeah,
Oh, man. Maybe like 2026.
maybe Night Rain comes up like in between.
I would
So-
imagine like a late 2026, early 2027, because I feel like after 2 years, gamers forget, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. And
So-
they could end up doing I don't know if the Elden Ring game is going to have the DLC. Like, I don't even know if they're the Shadow or Tree.
so yeah, that's true, because it just says Tarnished Edition, so I have no idea what that means. But, yeah, so I guess, you know, originally that was the thing that I liked the most, and it blew my mind. And now after, like, that's been kind of cooled down, I'm kind of debating between, honestly, hearing that Cyberpunk can run on that game, right?
It runs really well on Steam Deck.
Yeah, so I think that was like one of the things that really blew my mind.
Yeah.
I was amazed that when it's docked, you can actually get 4K, even if it's
Yeah, I was
4K
shocked.
30. Just
Oh, so wait, we were talking about. I thought you were talking about just games. Okay, go
no,
ahead.
no,
You go.
those are the things that really shocked me. So,
Yeah, I mean, I was talking.
game wise, I don't know if anything really blew me away. Like, probably Donkey
Yeah.
Kong, you know, like you said, because the game I'm the most hyped for, you know, it's Pokemon and Metroid,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
and
for
so
sure.
because of that, like,
Yeah, so I think for me, if we're going to talk about everything, like what had me the most hype, so let's just start there. I was shocked that if you dock it, it looks like it's up clocked because you're getting a fan inside the dock itself. You can support 4K 120 FPS, which is shocking. Again, they didn't talk about upscaling at all in the
Yeah.
trailer in the
I mean, it's
direct.
probably a game that's like 2D,
Yeah, that's
and then
utter
it's going
shit.
4K.
Yeah.
But just the fact that they're allowing that as an option
Yeah.
means that it
Yeah.
must be substantially more
And
powerful.
well, the fact that okay, they're also having Switch 2 enhanced editions of Switch 1 games, and the one that they showed specifically was Metroid. They go on handheld mode, you can get 1080p 60 FPS with HDR, or 720p 120 FPS, or when docked, 4K 60 FPS or 1080p 120.
Yeah, that's really good.
That's crazy, dude. It's like wow.
So I mean, to me, that's a huge upgrade.
It's like what world am I living
And
in?
I think for me, what really just like
Pinch me.
blew my mind is we might actually
Touch
now
me.
be in a place where uh, Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, like, they can all have games released at the same time on all their platforms because they have relative similarity in terms of power.
So parity. So I think for the next 3 years, now you're going to get games released on all three platforms. But as soon as we hit the next generation for PlayStation, Xbox, game over again.
Oh yeah.
So you got a small 3 year window. I personally believe where everything now comes out on all three. But as soon as we jump again, Nintendo's out.
Which is kind of annoying that like now like Nintendo is always halfway, and then that's why I was kind of like, oh man, if like Microsoft goes to the next generation next year too, but it's always, I feel like it's always going to be like Nintendo on its own and Microsoft and Sony.
100%. And then another thing I was pleasantly surprised is you can't use micro SD cards, but you have to use micro SD Express, which means they're using a faster, more proprietary memory protocol on the Switch, which means faster load times. And one of the games that is going to take advantage of that is the enhanced version of Breath of the Wild. Faster load times. They showed it off, and
I think we had talked about it like at maybe our last podcast or the one before then, and I thought it was just such a stupid idea. And like now, I actually don't think it's a stupid idea.
Yeah.
I actually think it's a pretty smart idea. It's because both of them are just basically elevated versions of what you would get on the Switch, and then you can just pay for like an upgrade pass, and I got to give it up to Nintendo. Like, I feel like Microsoft and Sony have kind of struggled at times with the transition between one generation and the other. But I mean, Nintendo kind of did it really well because they showed, hey, here are the games that you love. They're still going to work. Here are the games you love. Okay, you have to, buy this to get an upgraded version. And, here's the games that just came out. You don't have to buy them all over again, right? You just have to pay for the upgrade if you want it. And here are the games that are clearly on both, and we're also giving you games that are just exclusive to Switch 2. So they had something to cover everything.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, that Donkey Kong game, that could be a Switch 1 game.
Yeah, I think so.
You know what I'm saying? But they need a reason for people to buy it. And I think them keeping Metroid and Pokemon on Switch 1 and then Donkey Kong on Switch 2, that's the perfect middle ground. So like that, so again, the memory protocol being faster, great, I love that. Them showing off the example. And then GameCube NSO, like for them to announce that for Switch 2, hey, you're getting now a GameCube controller, dedicated controller, bringing that back, which is going to be hard to get, by the way. But it's wireless. And then here's where I'm disappointed. One of the first 3 games coming to GameCube NSO, fucking Wind Waker. It's like that game was fucking remastered on the Wii U. All you gotta do is port that over. You get a better version rather than an emulated version. Like why? Yeah. But then you get F-Zero for the GameCube, and then the third game was Soul Calibur 2, which those two, Soul Calibur I loved.
But But you have to have a Nintendo Switch Online membership, right?
Online plus the expansion pass, which is expensive. So again, what I hate about Nintendo is why can't I buy that game separately and just emulate it on
the nickel and dime you? They find their way to nickel and dime you.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I think that was the most shocking news of the day for me was how expensive everything has gotten.
God.
I wonder if tariffs have anything to do with it. I don't know.
It's hard to say.
But $450. I mean, I'm still gonna buy it. I think it's still gonna sell like hotcakes. But man, I did not expect $450.
Yeah.
I thought for sure it was a done deal at $399.
I thought so too, and I thought there was a possibility $450. I was just like, would they really want to do that to their consumer base? And they seem to be willing. Hype is at all-time high. Now, what I can say is if you get the $500 bundle, you're saving $30 by getting the Mario Kart bundle.
Which is the one I'm going to buy.
Okay.
So I'm going to get the $500 one.
So I'm not going for the $450. What does piss me off, though, for sure, is that like they released a lot of the pricing models now for a lot of their games. It's all over the place. Some games are $80, like Mario Kart Tour. Some games are $70. And then there's some third-party games that were $60. And I'm like, I don't understand this.
But I mean, it's insane that they're going up to $80.
I
The
know.
fact that they're breaking that boundary, and it's Nintendo that's
Yeah.
breaking the boundary, because I don't think there's been any regularly priced Xbox or PlayStation game that has been 80,
No, not yet.
because it's only been deluxe editions.
I truly believe GTA 6 will be 90 or 100, but yeah, we
I
haven't had
mean,
a game
now I
yet.
never thought it would be 90 or 100. And after I saw Mario at 80, I was like, oh my god, why would they
Yeah.
not charge 90
Well,
for
well,
that?
so here's where I'm confused. Two first party games, Mario Kart 80, right? Donkey Kong 70, and I'm like, why would they make Donkey Kong 70? The only thing I can think of is, again, it's on a case by case basis. They go Mario Kart. It's also going to be a live service game. We're going to support it just like we did a Mario Kart 8. We are inherently giving you way more in this package because Bonanza is just a one time play.
Yeah.
You're done after a couple hours.
Yeah, I wonder if that's how they're going to try and make that a thing. But to me, I think they look at the numbers and they have their calculations. They're like, all right, if we have Donkey Kong at 70 versus 80, we're going to sell this many units, and we might going to lose on this many units. But Mario Kart,
Yeah, it's so
if it's
big.
60,
And everyone
70,
will buy it
80,
still.
everyone's going to buy it.
Yeah.
And if they're bundling it, then people who are price conscious will just get the bundle,
Yeah.
and they'll just get it for 50. And that's just another win for them, because now they don't have to worry about people reselling it,
Yeah.
right? Because they're getting the straight 50,
Digital,
right?
yeah.
Digital. So it's just kind of a win all around. I mean, it kind of sucks because
Yeah.
I feel like it sets a bad precedent.
It really does.
But it is what it is, because Mario Kart sells so much. It's
Yeah.
insane. Like, everyone buys Mario Kart.
Right now, I'm in a spot in my life where I want to collect as many physical games as I can, and I get the convenience, and I know I'm going to have to swap the card out often, but I'm just getting the 450 version because I want to buy a physical version of Mario Kart. So
But you're
that's
not
just
going to
me.
sell it, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to sell it. I used to sell all my shit in the past. I haven't been doing that lately. I've been buying a lot of physical copies for Switch. I've been going back, like I bought it now. I just recently bought a physical copy of Mario Kart 8 because I sold mine a long time ago. I bought a physical copy of Smash and like two other Mario games that I didn't have. So I'm in that mood where I'm going to keep them forever. It's inconvenient for me to constantly say, take this physical copy of a game, put it in, put it in, put it in, but it is what it is. And then the other thing, I just want to talk about Mario Kart a little bit. So that's releasing day and date on launch at June 5th with the system.
To the surprise of no one.
To the surprise of no one. Interesting that they're basically making it like Forza Horizon.
Yeah, I saw that. I was cracking up. I was like, this is Forza Horizon,
Yeah.
Mario.
But I was disappointed, and I wasn't. Like, I like that they're doing that, but what's the incentive to just free roam?
Yeah.
Like, if I'm not collecting shit or upgrading my cars, there will be upgrade aspects, but like, there's not that much. And I really felt like if they had added a single player, like story based mission type of mode, that I would have made more sense than just free roam.
Yeah, I'm really curious what they're scheming. I really didn't understand what they were getting at either. So I know they're gonna have a direct. What is that, like
Soon,
2 weeks
2
or
weeks.
3 weeks, something
April
like that.
17th.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, at least again, I want to say that it's just Nintendo's marketing,
Yeah.
because the clip that they showed of the free roam just seemed pointless.
Yeah,
it really
pointless.
did.
I'm like, what am I'm cool. I can visit all the maps, but dude, I can just select a map on a screen and say, give me to this.
And one of the new things was you can keep driving from one course to another.
Yeah, so there's a mode called knockout mode. If you keep, like, if you're always in like the top 8 or something, you'll keep moving on to the next course, and that will be more than 4 courses.
Or maybe I have to rewatch the video. I could have sworn they said something.
They also
after
said,
you're done with the race, you drive to the next.
Yeah, then they said that as well, and again, it didn't make sense.
So I guess I was a little confused. I was like, am I physically getting off the track and then driving to the next?
Yeah,
one?
that's what they made it sound like.
Why would I want to drive from one stadium to another?
Yeah,
like that just seemed kind of odd to me too.
Again, they're trying to make it like an open world-esque, like everything's connected. So it's like, okay, fine, this is a big map. I get that, but I just don't care about that. Like I have to spend an extra 3 minutes now getting to the next course. Like,
yeah, I'm really curious what they're doing, because that seems like the first major change in a Mario Kart game in a long time. And they had to do something to change it up.
Yeah,
it's been
for sure.
Essentially the same formula for a very long time.
Yeah, it's formulaic, but I was hoping that they would have went like the double dash route and like reintroduced the 2 people per cart again, but I guess we're not getting that.
Oh, which one was that?
That was the GameCube one.
Oh man, that
was amazing because you could swap on the fly, and when you paired up with certain people, like there was like, I don't know if there was not bonuses, but it was just like unique driving styles. And then the other thing is, I'll be honest with you, I'm not getting the game because of the free roam. It's like a cool thing, but it's a side thing that I'll probably never touch. The maps are always so good that I'm like, I can competitively drive for like and play this game for like a year, and then I'm like it tempers me out. And I'm like, okay, no more. But the maps I know will be good.
Yeah.
And then I hope that and 24 players online. So I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
makes it more competitive.
I think for me, I've kind of gotten over Mario Kart. Like I
Yeah.
played it a lot, when I was in school, and now I just kind of don't have that same allure for it.
We don't get enough people together to want to play.
Exactly.
It,
Yeah. And like if I was gonna get into something like that, like I'd rather play like a Super Smash.
Yeah.
But for me, if it's $50 bundled in, then I'll get it. That's what kind of drew me in. I was like, it's 450 versus 500, and I get the whole game. I might as well get it because if it does, like right now, I don't actually have Mario Kart 8. I did not buy it because I had the Wii U version, and I refused to buy the Mario Kart 8. So it will be nice that if someone comes over and they want to play, then I can,
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, I feel like it almost feels like an essential.
Yeah, it's essentially like you have to have it. You can't not have it, regardless of how much you play. So another thing to talk about is, pre-orders open up April 9th. I thought for sure they would have dropped the pre-orders right after the drop today. I even stopped by GameStop just before going to work. I'm like, hey, you guys doing pre-orders? Like, no, we're waiting a week. I'm like, damn,
Yeah. Do we know if they have any trade-in bonuses?
They did. GameStop just announced if you trade your Switch 1 towards it, you get 175. It's not bad.
It's not bad. And what about the OLED?
For the OLED. If you trade the older ones, it's like less. It's like 100 and 120.
Oh, man.
And you have the OLED, so.
I have both. I have the OLED and the old one.
Okay. You could trade in at least the old and get at least like 100 or 120.
I wonder if I can stack up both.
Yeah, you might. That way you'll have to check.
Yeah, I was actually considering keeping one because.
I'd keep one.
Yeah, because they said the whole thing about you can do like the game share or whatever, and then you can use like an old Nintendo Switch as like a screen, and I was like, well, that could be kind of cool. Like if I really needed to, because like if I'm playing Pokemon and in order for you to play with me, all you have to do is use my Switch and you can use the same game. Yeah. And if someone's using the TV, you don't have to worry about that. Like that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it reminds me of like what other system did that years ago where the game sharing thing. It wasn't Nintendo, it was the DS, right? I specifically remember us being in high school on the bus. Someone had Mario Kart for the DS, and I'm like, hey, how can we play this? And I think it was Anthony, and he goes, oh, it's game shared. He's like, you don't have to have a copy of this game. I'll just share it with you.
I did not realize that.
And we did. We were on the bus, and I'm like, wow, I'm playing Mario Kart 7 with him, and I'm like, I don't own this game. It was crazy.
That's nice, yeah.
So they brought that. The fact that they brought that back, pretty insane to me.
And I want to see how that works out, but man, this is like the way Nintendo was just kind of clever, because if they're making it so the old Switch is not 100% obsolete, but there's a ton of reasons to upgrade, like you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. Because ideally what you want is for people to have both.
Yeah, right? Well, they're making you invest in their ecosystem. The problem with like Xbox was when they jumped from Xbox One and 360, but to like Series, it almost made sense to not own those older consoles anymore.
I mean, if it's the same way about PlayStation, like what's the point,
what's the point of the PS4?
Like the only use you'll get is if you need a Blu-ray player.
Yeah, and it didn't at that point. People don't care, right? So you stream most of your stuff now. Some other things to talk about is like some of the hardware. So the cartridges will now be red. Interesting decision to make red cartridges, but okay. And the box art now for all Switch 2 games are red as well. I don't personally like that. I like how the current ones are translucent. The other thing is you're going to have 256 gigabytes of storage. So that's more than the current Switch, which is 32.
Yeah.
And now they're announcing something called game key cards. So certain games that cannot fit on a Switch 2 cartridge, which is still the same as the Switch 1 in terms of capacity, 32 gigs, you basically have to download the whole game online, even though it's a physical cartridge. So, for example, one of the games that was announced, I think it was Street Fighter 6 that's coming. You take the cartridge, you put it in your Switch 2. The game is not on at all. It authenticates online through their back office, through their PKI. Once it authenticates to your local Switch 2, then you download the whole game online. And I'm like, dude, that's so dumb,
I mean, but how do you get around it, Because if you're basically getting the same games that Xbox and Sony are getting, and those games are like 80, 90 gigs, like how are you going to get Call of Duty on one of those cartridges unless the technology gets so advanced you can get like 256 gigabytes or like 100 gigabytes or whatever on one of those things? Or you just have games that don't look that good.
Yes, I would have liked to know how much a 128 gig cartridge would have cost them compared to their normal 32 gig? Because if they're really, let's say it was just a couple dollar difference, it's like, man, you skimped us out. You're charging 450 for a console rather than 400. And if maybe it was only a couple dollar difference to upgrade the capacity of the Switch cartridges, like, come on, man. Like, I
I
don't
mean,
know. I don't
and
know
isn't
what
there
it
a
is.
world where like you could have both? Like, couldn't you have some cartridges that are 32
Yeah, and
and
some
then some that are plus, and it's a cost that the developer has to eat up,
yeah,
right? And then you get like a
yeah,
128 gigabyte like
yeah.
thing, and you can even make it a different color if you
Yeah,
want,
yeah. Or pass it on to the consumer. So let's say your game is 100 gigs, right? Like, for example, let's say Death Stranding comes to Switch 2, 100 gigs. Oh, we'll use the bigger capacity cartridge, but guess what? We'll pass the cost on to the consumer. We're going to charge $80 for it instead of 70.
No, screw
Okay,
that. I don't want to pay 10 bucks more.
but still, you know what I'm saying?
I know.
Like, why do I have to go through this bullshit?
I mean, I will say that's one of the things I low key liked about the Switch, and I feel like that was an underrated feature.
Yeah.
That if you haven't touched your Switch in a long time and you need to play, you could just plug it in, and
Yeah, the
and then
gameplay.
it'll tell you, okay, you need to update, and you'll be like, screw that, start software anyway,
Yeah.
and you're playing.
You're playing. You didn't need to connect to the internet, and B, sometimes playing a game off the cartridge was faster
Yeah.
than having the game downloaded.
Honestly,
So
that's how I got through so many of my Switch games, because I would just carry it along with me if I was on a vacation somewhere, and then I would just pull it out and be like, all right, time to play.
Yeah.
And then I could just get started.
usually started.
And now if I have to like download and update like
Yeah.
everything else,
Yeah,
then I'm not gonna play
Yeah,
the
I'm not
games.
gonna play. And now, especially if you want to play a third party game like Cyberpunk, you're gonna have to download 100 plus gigabytes of data first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happens when Call of Duty comes out?
Fuck that. I'm not playing Call of Duty.
Because wait, how big is the disc 256?
256, it won't even be enough.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Because if it's 256, then how much actual space
Look,
do you have? Like 200, and
dude,
how big is Call of Duty?
400 now. It's 400. Dude, I was legitimately at Andrew's house a month ago. He had 400 gigabytes dedicated to Call of Duty.
Oh my god!
I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is utterly insane. So the other thing that they're doing to combat piracy, because Switch One was so bad in terms of piracy and emulation on the PC, is they are now doing what Xbox is doing. And I think even PlayStation does this, but they're authenticating once in the lifetime of the game with their back office and their PKI. So basically now when you insert any Switch cartridge, you have to connect to the internet first. If you forget to do that, and let's say you go to Cancun and you try to forgot to connect to the internet, you won't be able to play.
Oh, that's annoying.
So that is annoying, but is their way of combating piracy.
It is what it is,
Yeah. So
the person who hates piracy the most in the world is Nintendo.
Yeah, they'll sue you to the ground. So
which I think is kind of funny, because honestly, I feel like low key Pokemon got a big fan base off of all of those emulators and all the ROM hacks, but whatever.
Absolutely, they made the games better most of the time.
So yeah, and I remember like, not me, but people I know who played on their PCs,
and their mobile phones.
They get to, play at a faster speed and then reload instantly. So I've heard it's been a great experience. Story. I would never do such a thing myself.
And then so I'm curious, like the fact that they finally introduced game chat, like this was a little shocking to me, because first of all, it looked fucking horrible in the trailer. Whenever you share your game with someone else, it looks like trash. It was literally lagging so bad. But fine, now you can buy a camera.
I think the fact that like you actually have like good audio game chat and an easy way to access it is a massive improvement. But again, the video chat, like you want to make sure what you're showing is not laggy.
Limited in scope too to only friends, it seems like.
Yeah, I guess with me, it was a mixed bag. Like I kind of get the flack, people were saying, because the video chat, looks kind of choppy, and then when you do the game share and stuff like that. But I like the way that Nintendo finds a way of making the features of the console like feel more than just a console, but like feel more integrated to you and like the people you're playing with. And this is kind of their thing, ever since really since the beginning of the day, like Game Boy, like a key part of that was, how portable it was. And then, you play Pokemon with other people, right? Yeah. And then, GameCube, play Super Smash all in the same room. Now we're doing Wii Sports. And then they started really evolving. They did motion controls. Yeah. And then from there with the Switch, they're really doing gyro, and they're doing like separate handhelds and tabletop and all this stuff. And it's interesting, now they're adding in a new dimension, right? When it comes to like, well, how does your voice integrate into the game? How does a video camera integrate your face into the game? So it's like they're trying to like still be creative and like find new like systems that like their developers can play with. Like for instance, like I think the whole Mario Party thing where the
Yes,
people's heads pop up, like that's not for me. I don't think it makes a
but
big difference, but it's so unique. Like I
yeah,
have to give it to them. We're like, wow, like that is a unique use of this feature.
yeah. So I was just about to bring that up. So they're like the one game that they're going to show off at the Treehouse Live tomorrow and Thursday, which I'm surprised they're bringing back Treehouse because that used to be an E3 thing, by the way. Is Super Mario Party Jamboree. So it's the latest Super Mario Party game that came out, and they're enhancing it with all these new game chat features and game share features and camera features. Now, this isn't super unique to Nintendo because I don't know if you know this, and you probably have seen it before. At our local Dave and Buster's, they introduced 2 to 3 Mario Kart kiosks where you can
Oh
drive,
yeah.
and they have a camera there that when you drive, they take a picture of your face and then they put it on your character. So they've already experimented with this in
Oh,
arcades.
clever.
So it's funny that they're now integrating
Integrating with
that
that.
in their actual
But
console
it's
ecosystem.
but it's just interesting how like even features like your voice and they're like trying to use like your
Yeah,
voice to kind of
yeah,
impact the gameplay
that
and
was
like the
cool.
puzzles and
That
things
was
like that. And I was
cool.
like, man, like somehow they find a way of like making something that's really niche
Yeah,
but also plays into their game and fits
yeah,
into it. And even like the whole mouse thing, like
yeah. That was about to bring that
the
up.
mouse thing, like when I heard Lenovo was doing that, I was like, okay, this is kind of silly.
Yeah,
Like what's really the point of this? But Nintendo like finds a way to show you that like no, this can actually be used for gameplay
yeah.
purposes. And like for me, for instance, like I didn't really think that basketballish game was like that. I
The
wasn't into
ones
it.
the where the entities look like they're disabled and
Yeah,
playing
yeah.
basketball.
Like I wasn't that super into it, but I was like, that's creative. That's really a creative
Crippled
use.
people playing basketball.
Yeah. I mean, just A, yes, that, but B, also like, who would think that, oh, we have these mice, let's make a game that's like um,
That makes
Rocket.
you like Jordan. You're crippled.
Okay, Arjun, stop. So, but
Like
like
Mike.
that's such a unique like use. Like I was like, man,
I'll agree
I
with
gotta give it
that.
up to them. And then okay, now you can use it for Civ. Okay, that's
Yeah,
kind of
you can
cool.
use it for Metroid.
Yeah.
Point and click. So I mean, I used to never play Halo and Gears on PC, but like the fact that you can basically play Metroid like that. Granted, you're gonna
I
need like
wonder
a
what that's gonna
table.
be like.
It might be actually pretty good. They showed like a 5 second clip of Metroid, and but you're gonna need the thing is you're gonna need a table down in front of you. You're gonna need to sit somewhere. Those if it's not convenient, then okay, I'm gonna play
I mean,
my
out
thing.
of all of them, I think the feature that when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, this is actually like a better use of this. And it was super small. You know that it's kind of what was the name of the game where you have to pay for it, but basically shows you how to use the Switch. Um,
1-2 switch.
no, it's in the Switch too.
Oh yeah, yeah. The thing. I
They
forgot.
had they had a little clip where they were basically
Yeah,
playing
showing
like
you how to use it.
golf, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah,
the guy was like pulling it back and then
yeah.
shooting it, and it was like way more precise. And I was like, oh man, that's a really good use of that tech.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking about because I don't know if
Although I
people are
think it's
making
really
fun.
silly
It's called
that
Welcome Tour.
welcome. Yeah, I think it's really silly you have to pay for that. That should
Yeah,
be
that's
included.
that's that's absolutely silly.
Whatever.
That because that's a when the PlayStation 5 came out, you got asked about demo or thing for
Yeah, that was
free,
included. Yeah.
and it kind of showed you the features of the PlayStation. So they're like, here's the rumble, here's the microphone, and how do you use that, and et cetera, et cetera. So and the gyro or whatever. So I don't know. It's weird that we have to pay for this one. I don't think anyone's gonna buy that.
Yeah. Who
Um,
knows?
the
I
other
guess other things. I was kind of surprised that the Switch 2 weighs the same as the Switch.
oh, does it?
Yeah. The dimensions are relatively similar, but I think there's some differences in the dimensions. Like it might be like a little taller or something like that. But yeah,
Okay.
I think it's both like 0.88 kilograms or something like that.
But battery life, I'm still disappointed in it. It says 2.5
It's gonna
to
be
6
terrible.
hours.
Yeah, it's gonna basically be like the first one.
Yeah, it's like man, and again,
And they downgraded the screen. It's no longer OLED.
yeah, now it's an LCD again, but it's larger though,
Yeah.
7.9 compared to 6.2 originally. So again, they'll go through like Nintendo. I was just thinking about this because I just bought an old 2DS recently. Dude, like it's so crazy to me how Nintendo goes, we make a console and then we make 500 iterations of
Oh
it.
yeah. There's totally going to be a Nintendo Switch 2 OLED.
Yeah, there'll be a OLED, there'll be another light, there'll be probably I wouldn't be surprised if they make other versions that they didn't have from like the Switch and the prior generation, like and then they make multiple colors and variants of it. And I like that. I like that they go balls out on that because to me it just there's that allure again. Like And it reminds me of the Xbox Lab thing where you can create different
Yeah,
controllers. I love that you can do that. I'll pay the 200 because if this makes me feel like better and happier playing my
yeah. I
game,
mean, it's
I'll
kind
do
of
it.
unique, you know.
It's unique, you know. So I
It
like
makes
that.
you feel like you have something that's unique, you
Yeah.
know.
So and then they announced some new hardware and accessories. So again, the camera was one thing. I don't think I'm gonna buy it. I'll be honest with you. I don't really care.
I'm not gonna get the camera. I mean, I can see the use cases they have for it, but I'm good. Like I
Yeah.
remember the days of Connect and PS Move and
Yeah.
all that, and like
It
I'm
failed.
good.
And
Why
then
couldn't you have just integrated a camera into the Switch?
yeah, I don't understand
And
that.
that's not expensive.
It's not. Yeah, they're price gouging there. And then they announced a new Pro controller, which I was surprised because this one on the back has two of those trigger buttons like
Yeah,
on the
yeah,
sides, kind of like how a lot of the Pro controllers
yeah.
from
Like it's
PlayStation.
kind of a halfway step towards the Elite.
Yeah, it's like a halfway to Elite. So I'm happy about that. They announced a charging grip, and then the dock itself, because it has a fan now in it and whatnot, and it can upscale to 4K. It's $110 if you want a new
Oh my
dock,
god, that's huge.
which is a lot.
Yeah.
Wow. And so I just want to go quickly over the third party games that were announced. Again, the one other thing we didn't touch on specifically was two Kirby games. They're enhancing Kirby and the Forgotten Land, which you know what? That actually is a really well received game. So I'm gonna buy that, but it's coming now with a new expansion, so I'm gonna buy for the Switch too. The other one was Kirby Air Ride, or Air Riders. That's what Sakurai is now working on. We talked about earlier, so it remains to be seen how the game will be. But the third party games that I'm kind of excited for.
Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy
I
VII
can't
Integrate, like
believe that it's showing up on Switch 2 before the Xbox.
that. That
Oh
is
my
the
god,
craziest.
this is it's so petty.
Yeah, it's petty, but it's like, look, they found a way to bring it to the Steam Deck, and I'll be honest with you, I saw videos, it doesn't run really well.
Yeah.
But the fact that it can, they're gonna then bring remake or
Rebirth,
rebirth.
yeah.
They'll have the whole trilogy there before Xbox, guys. I'm
Yeah.
telling
I
you.
mean, the thing is, I think Nintendo Switch 2 is going to sell like crazy. So I understand that there's going to be a good user base and it'll probably sell well. But at the same time, wouldn't it take more work to go
Yes.
from PS5 to Switch 2 than
It
PS5 to Xbox? Like, and you developed it on the PC, did
I
you not?
know.
Like, how hard? And it's on the PC now.
It
Like,
doesn't even make sense.
how hard is it to just port it to the Xbox? Like, I feel like you press three buttons, it's there, and you make yourself like a couple $1,000,000.
It's really,
Like, and it's so old. Like, and this, I will say this is the type of stuff that turned me off from Sony. Like, I'll never forget when Sony purposely had Call of Duty and they like did a 1 year like
yeah,
exclusivity for like the zombies mode
Yeah,
or one of
so
those modes, and I was
dumb.
like, why? You're winning. Like, why does it matter?
It's a
At this
petty
point,
thing.
it's a petty thing. It's like you're just depriving people from joy. Like, who in the world is going to now say, I'm going to buy an Xbox instead of a PlayStation because Final Fantasy VII Remake has came out on the
You
Xbox?
never
Like,
know.
literally, nobody is going to do that.
Maybe the
Are you stop, man?
So the thing is, like, a couple of other games announced. So we finally got to see Silksong, Hollow Knight. That game hasn't been showed in a long time, like years, and they confirmed a 2025 release date. Utterly shocked because the first game was so good, well received, critically acclaimed, like commercially did well.
I love how they gave it like 3 seconds.
Yeah, they literally give it. It was like in a sizzle reel, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, it's a lot!" Because people thought the game was canceled. We're getting Star Wars Outlaws. I'm kind of shocked that they're deciding to port that first rather than an Assassin's Creed game. I'm personally, but again, Ubisoft has acknowledged that at the beginning of every Nintendo generation that they've supported, their games have sold phenomenally well, and I think they want to make their money back on a licensed game like that. So that just makes sense.
Yeah, and I imagine Assassin's Creed Shadow will probably sell well, whether it's this year or next year on the Switch. But I feel like if there's not a ton of games out for the Switch too, and you just
Yeah.
picked one up, then
People will see that in stores and they'll be like, "Oh, like I'll get that for my
And
kid."
honestly, it seems like a pretty good fit, because
Star Wars, like
you can try and target like a younger audience too.
they'll play that game, I think. So I was surprised a new update to Daemon X Machina. So it's called Titanic Scion.
Yeah, I was so confused at what that game was because I thought it was Mecha Break, and
That's
I was
what I
like, why
thought.
does this look so good?
It looks so good, didn't it?
Yeah, and
because
I was like, how have I never heard of this game before?
So I remember when the first one came out for Switch, and again, I think this is the same game. It's just they're adding like I don't want to say it's an expansion. It's just like I don't know if it's a new game or not. I'm confused. But what I can say is when the first one came out for Switch, gameplay looked great, but it looked like a prototype, like a here's our first idea of the game. And this version of it, the gameplay, like it looks like more action, more story, and it looked like the Gundam game I've wanted for my entire life. So I think I'm like legit. I think I'm gonna finally get that game. Project 007, which again they've already announced in the past, but no release date.
Yeah, how long has it been since they announced that?
It's been like 2 years over. You have to assume they started well before then too. So no release date. Hitman World of Assassination Signature Edition. I've never played the new Hitman games. I don't know if I'm gonna try it now. Kind of up in the
Yeah,
air.
not really for me. I mean, they were on Game Pass for a while, and I didn't bother downloading
Yeah.
them. So
Um, Fortnite, which has already kind of been on the Switch. So Yakuza Zero Director's Cut being supported at the launch. Kind of surprised, but I wish they did a different Yakuza game, like Pirates, the new Pirates one that just came out. I don't care about these older ones, but I understand they're like one of the best ones in the series and then the franchise. Tony Hawk's Pro Skaters 3 and 4, pretty cool for it to come out. Utterly shocked. They're supporting Borderlands 4 at launch with the Switch 2. I
yeah,
might actually
that's
not get
huge.
it.
That's huge.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna get on the Switch too. I was gonna get it on console first because I'm like, okay,
Is there going to be cross-system play?
there should be. So
Yeah, so if that's the case, then it really doesn't matter. You just get it on there.
Switch, yeah, and I loved playing it on my ROG Ally Borderlands 3. And now, don't get me wrong, I told myself earlier, I'm like, okay, I'll get Borderlands 4 now on the console. It'll look beautiful on there. I just want to see fidelity wise. But honestly, man, playing it portably.
So, are we thinking that the Switch 2 is more powerful than the ROG Ally? Because
Yeah, I think
honestly,
it
seems like
Well,
it is.
Look, I won't say more powerful because depending on which version of the ROG Ally you get, like you get more. The one I have, the Z1 Extreme, has 24 gigs of RAM, which this only has 12, right? But then this has a customized SoC with an NVIDIA GPU, and that has an AMD chipset with the what was it?
This is it's a Zen 1 or
with the Zen 1
Extreme or whatever. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So like it's apples to orange comparison. So it's like
Because the thing is, like, some of these games that they're mentioning, I'm like, whoa, like they're really confidently mentioning these games, and I can't imagine Nintendo being okay with a game that pushes the system so hard that it only plays for 40 minutes.
Yeah, like they wouldn't want.
And I feel like that's something like one of the problems with like the Windows handhelds. Like maybe the Windows OS is just eating up the performance and eating up the battery life. So that's why even if like spec wise it's on par, it's just running way better.
Well, so that's the funny thing. So whenever I played Borderlands on the ROG Ally, I played at the highest frame rate with the highest performance mode. I would barely get an hour of gameplay. So if this can give me potentially 2 hours of gameplay with Borderlands 4, I'll take it. That's better than what I was getting
just
already.
Get a battery pack.
Yeah, and I would connect my battery pack to the ROG when I played Borderlands as well. But if I didn't, the 1 hour, it was frustrating because I'd be in the middle of a battle. I'm like, I can't save this because the other problem about ROG, you can't save a game in the middle of gameplay because you lose a bunch of data on Windows. I'll be able to.
Yeah, you can just easily
resume. Yeah, I just have pause and resume.
I do wonder what the Microsoft, ROG is going to be like later this year.
Yeah, especially if it supports the resume feature, suspend and resume.
And I feel like if they're putting their stamp on it, they really have to clean up Windows.
Yeah, because again, if you put that out and the Switch still has a better UI, simpler, cleaner, and you can still suspend and resume and has decent battery life, more people would go with this.
Of course, yeah. I mean, the only thing that would have going for it would be, you can play Game Pass on it. That's it. But
that's it.
the price is going to be crazy high.
Yeah, it'll be like 900.
Because man, I was looking at these handhelds. They're 800, 900 nowadays. That's insane, right? And so if Microsoft is putting their brand name on it, like, are we talking close to 1,000? Like, what? How expensive is this going to be?
I'm not going to be paying anymore because I think Nintendo is going to get more third-party support than they've ever gotten with this going forward. And I think maybe ROG might not be my preferred way to play anymore. I think it's going to be the Switch 2 now.
Yeah. So that's crazy to me that it's going to have that much third-party support. Like, when's the last time Nintendo was getting third-party support like this? Like,
never.
GameCube? Like,
even then, GameCube didn't. It did. It was. I would say yes, GameCube, but
because I feel like GameCube was the last time that PS2, Xbox. Yeah, and then it was relatively similar.
It would get the same games PS2 and Xbox got, but you have to put into perspective that the GameCube only sold 20 million units. So when third parties tried, said it wasn't worth their time because we made jack shit on this console. Bravely Default is coming, which I don't really care about, but
Split Fiction. Yeah,
Oh wow,
Split
Split
Fiction is
Fiction.
coming out there. Yeah,
Wow. Um,
that's what I mean. Like pretty much like brand new games that have
yeah.
come out this year are all coming out on it.
Hogwarts Legacy. So it's already out on the Switch, but it runs like garbage. But so there was a rumor that Hogwarts Legacy was getting a definitive version with an expansion, and it looks like it's been canceled internally by Warner Brothers. But at least they're enhancing it now for the Switch too. Street Fighter 6, which I was pleasantly surprised. Final Fantasy, we already mentioned. Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition, which comes with the expansion.
Yeah, that's gonna be great.
That one I'm trying, but I'm curious to know how that runs. If that game can run handheld
So that's what I'm
30 FPS 1080p, I'd be
That's the
happy.
thing. I actually ran it on my ROG Ally, not the X, but my ROG Ally, and it ran fine. But I mean, I didn't get great battery life,
But
and it
what
was really.
resolution could you run it at?
I don't even remember. It was, all I know is there was it. Was it? I don't think I had frame generation, but I had like the DLSS, and it
Okay,
was like
upscaling.
cranked up quite a bit. So, yeah, it was kind of blurry, and it was a little choppy.
I'm scared a little bit. I feel like the best they'll get out of it is like 720p, 60 frames per second on this, but it's still
I mean,
portably.
I'd be totally fine with that, but that makes me wonder that if is there some really good AI stuff going on with the NVIDIA chips? It's I guess this is kind of related, but there's been a lot of flack, for the 5080 and 5090, like the laptop GPUs,
Yeah.
and yeah, I really love Dave 2D, and I was watching his video about it, and I totally agree with him. He's like, guys, like, what do you expect?
Yeah.
Like we want laptops that are portable, that work well. We don't want these massive laptops. And
Right.
how much performance have we really improved? Like
Yeah.
got it, raw performance. Like you can't get laptops you want to use that also play games you want to play without having some sort of tech like this,
Yeah.
like AI tech. And I 100% agree. Like, I can totally get why people are annoyed at the 5090 desktop version not having as much raw performance and juice as they wanted,
Yeah.
and really leaning it heavy into like the
for-
multi-frame generation. But on a laptop, do you know what kind of ridiculous stuff I had to
Yeah.
do? You remember like when I had the Surface Pro 4 and I had
Yeah.
like a fan connected to like
Yeah.
blow on the back of my Surface just
Yeah,
so I
so
could get
hot.
like 4 more frames per
Yeah.
second, so I could go from 26 to 30.
Yeah, so when we had that conversation a while ago about like using AI upscaling and frame generation as a crutch for a dedicated PC, it shouldn't be. But for a laptop or a mobile like this, I'm
Yeah,
absolutely fine.
that'd be
with that.
amazing. And the thing is, I am not expecting to be the best gamer on
Yeah.
those systems. So if my input lag instead of like 4 or 10 or
Yeah.
20 is 50, fine, because I shouldn't be able to play this game on this device.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
that's why,
and it's convenience.
that was about to say that. So for a laptop and handheld, you're playing it for convenience, not because it's looking like amazing. So I'm playing probably on my handheld because I want to either lay in bed or I'm traveling or I'm taking my laptop with me while I'm traveling. I'm like, hey, I'm playing this at a resort or a family's house. So I'm taking the convenience over.
So that's what really makes me wonder if like the secret juice is the fact that they have some good AI stuff.
Yeah, I think
because it wasn't PS5 also going to go in a similar aren't they trying to use AI or something
They
like
are
that
right
to
now.
super resolution and things like that?
PS5 Pro is
Yeah.
doing that. So, and I think it's going to be built into all the consoles in the next generation from the get go. So you already see it's built into the Switch now. I'm pretty sure PS6 and Xbox, whatever series, whatever it's called, will all have it built in at the start of the generation.
Yeah, and I guess like to me, what I can understand as a downside is okay, it increases input lag and it creates artifacts and things like that, and that's why we're unhappy with it. But if we're using like CPU cores to create a simulated space for us to work and play, what difference is it if it's a CPU that's running a simulation or an APU or an NPU as they're called, and it's making fake frames?
Sure.
Because it's all fake.
Yeah,
it's literally a video game.
Look,
it's all generated
I
content.
think the PC market is fucked. I think it needs to be completely reset because expectations for people, like you said, Moore's law, right? Eventually, you get to a point where you're not getting exponential growth. So people kept saying, "Hey, as every generation of a GPU came out, we keep expecting it to look more and more realistic. A game that comes out says, "Oh, it should look so good." And the biggest concern that people have had, this is why I got mixed reviews on Steam, was Monster Hunter. Like, oh my god, even using a 50 series, there's so many artifacts in this. It's like, guys, it doesn't matter anymore. Like,
you
legitimately.
You can't get those like monumental changes anymore. It's just
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking like 2, 3, 4 nanometer. Like, there's
Yeah.
nothing. It's so
It's
small,
small.
and so I mean, I kind of do have to blame NVIDIA a little bit
Yeah, you
because
have to blame
I
them for
feel like,
marketing.
look, that's it, right? Because we should, if you sell people on, you're going to get crazy, performance, and then you use that as a tactic to really sell your cars for an insane price when you're overly so valued at such a crazy stock
Yeah.
valuation. It's going to leave a bitter taste in everyone's mouth
Yeah.
because like the expectation should be, hey guys, like
Yeah.
we really should be expecting like 10 or 20%
Yeah.
improvement.
Not 50 or 100.
Yeah, and if you are willing to trade, right,
Yeah.
some artifacts and some input
Yeah.
lag, then you can get better performance.
And that's the other problem is I think Nvidia is also tied now, and they cause their own mess in the sense that they can no longer market it as a cheaper product because if they do, people automatically assume that it's not as good as their prior generation of products. So imagine if the 50 series was cheaper than the 4000 series, then what's the point of buying this? I'm just going to stay on the 4000 series, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so
Because they want to get everyone in the upgrade cycle because
Yeah.
it's like the Apple tax, it's like you want to find a way to make everyone feel like what they have is obsolete.
Yeah. Well, think about it. It's the same thing you just said with your bed. Like, hey, you said I want to get a better bed, so I'm going to spend more because I'm assuming quality is going to be better,
Yeah.
and you do, and it is. But then sometimes it's still a hit or miss, and you're like, oh fuck, like
I'm going back to the cheaper bed.
yeah. So it happens to be that way with products. But I agree. I think the PC market needs to be reset. So and the fact that these games, like okay, we're getting WWE, NBA 2K, EA Sports FC, which we've gotten in the past on the Switch, but they did it for like 1 or 2 years and then they stopped. I think these will be more consistent and prevalent on the Switch too.
I mean, I think that's why, like, Valve, I feel like Valve gets PC like no one else. And that's why Steam Deck was a good bet.
It was a good bet.
And I know it hasn't sold like crazy,
Yeah.
but it really is kind of showing where there is a lot of room to grow in the PC market.
Well, think about it this way. Again, maybe Nintendo would have did this on their own, maybe not. What if they didn't have the competition from Steam? And now that Microsoft and Sony are heavily investing in it, maybe we wouldn't get a console that could output 4K or 120 FPS.
That's, definitely the 120. I was so surprised when I saw that. I was like, when has Nintendo cared about 120 frames per second? I was like, that is totally a response to all the Windows gaming PC.
Well, if they had said HDR, I said, okay, sure. But I was at 120. Now, what they didn't announce was VRR. I hope the hell to God that there's VRR so we can get 40 FPS games. But the fact that they didn't say that now,
I'm a
little concerned there. But they keep saying enhanced games. So when they say enhanced, I looked at their descriptions for some of the games like Pokemon Z8 and Metroid. They keep saying enhanced performance and resolution, but they're not pointing out exactly what that means. Maybe it is variable. I don't know. But if it's not variable, then fine. Lock me at a solid 30 or a solid 60. That's all I care about. Okay, so they already announced a list of games that are getting free updates for enhanced versions. So Link's Awakening and Echoes of Wisdom, which both are notoriously horrible on the Switch. Like when you play handheld, dude, you drop so many frames. Like it gets into the 20s, the 15s. I think you've even complained about it before the Link's Awakening. So they're getting free updates. I hope they lock them in at least at a 30, solid 30.
Oh, yeah.
So that's really all I have for the Switch 2. I think it was a great, overall, way to introduce things. I think
if you had to grade it, what would you say?
I give it a solid 8 out of 10. An hour was the perfect length, in my opinion. They had the one more thing at the end. You're getting the Treehouse demos in the next 2 days. You're then getting a Mario Kart Direct in 2 weeks, and then you're going to probably get more directs probably in May or June for the Bonanza game. Yeah. So I think overall, I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
I think an 8 out of 10 is pretty fair. I think because they had to kind of do divide and conquer, and some of the stuff was already revealed, that kind of took away from it. Can you imagine if we had Metroid and Pokemon,
oh my God,
being announced for the first time, or really getting gameplay for the first time in this? Then oh my God, that would easily be a 10. That everyone's mind would be blown away. Walking out of this, I was thinking instantly this is going to be a 9. But now that I've had more time to think about it, I kind of tempered my expectations a little bit and brought it down to B because hearing about how expensive these games are getting, really, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's
and so I think that kind of slowed things down a bit for me.
There's a report right now floating around. I don't know how accurate it is, but they're saying some games might even be 90.
Yeah, that's insane. So when I heard about how expensive the games are going to be, I was like, man, how expensive is every going to be?
Yeah,
Everything going to be? And Nintendo was already charging so much, because their games never go on sale. All their accessories are super expensive. Like they already make so much money,
yeah,
and now everything has gone easily 1.5 times more expensive. So that was kind of disappointing.
yeah,
I am kind of disappointed on the new From Software game because I thought it'd be
yeah.
single player, but I that's just me personally. And it's going to be an amazing game. People are going to
Sure,
love it. From Software
sure.
has honestly never missed. So, but for me, that's why it brought it down for like an 8.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the pricing is so all over the place. Like, I like that they announced Switch to enhanced games. We'll probably get a good amount of support going forward. It looks like Scarlet and Violet will be getting an update as well. They didn't say really what that update entails, but it seems like they're getting a performance mode update. It
Oh,
doesn't
that'd
say
be great.
when. The other problem that I have again is they're setting again a precedent. So I bet you 2K looked at this and said, "Oh, games are 80, maybe 90. We're selling GTA 6 for 100." Like, I just have a gut feeling like they were already kind of on the fence
Oh
with
yeah,
it, but after seeing this, they're like, "Oh, if it's a popular IP and brand that people care about, we can get it with anything."
I totally agree with you. I think before this, I would have probably bet money that Grand Theft Auto will not be $90. And I
Yeah,
remember watching like YouTube like videos and clips of people speculating. I was like, this is a stupid conversation. This is
yeah,
clickbait. Why would it ever be 90 or $100? And now that I'm hearing about Mario Kart being 80, I'm like,
yeah,
oh my
yeah.
god.
Like, it's
Oh
just
man.
like, and again, I don't know what games are going to be 90 going forward, but if the reports are accurate, it's going to be on a case by case
And you know who's
basis.
gonna jump on this afterwards? Sony.
Yeah, Sony will too. They'll
Sony
start
is
there first party.
absolutely going to make like the next God of War
Yeah,
or Last of Us or
yeah.
Intergalactic.
Intergalactic.
They're totally going to upcharge on
Yeah,
that.
they will. So, and again, I'm not saying they're skimping on us, but 450 for the Switch 2, like, just it still
And
blows my mind.
I wonder as well if because of the Windows gaming like handhelds, that also made Nintendo feel like they could kind
Get
of
away with that.
get away with it
Yeah,
because the ROG Ally X is what 800,
yeah, like 700,
$900
800.
like.
Yeah.
And if that's what the competition is costing, you're
Why can't
literally
we
a
do another
fraction of the
50?
cost. That's
Yeah,
nothing. And so I think, you know, I wonder if Nintendo would have made a less powerful, less featured like
yeah,
console for a little bit cheaper. And then when they saw what the rest of the gaming
yeah.
landscape was like, they're like, okay, let's kind of make a more pro device and let's start selling at a premium.
Well, like, okay, was the juice really worth the squeeze? So they say 120 FPS. Again, the only way that makes sense to me is if they support VRR. If they don't, what big AAA game is going to take advantage of it?
It's not gonna be any of the AAA games. It's
So,
gonna be like the indie games stuff.
so then the question becomes: is if they cut that out and they had a 4K 60 FPS screen, could they have saved? Could we have saved $10? Could we have saved $20?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's
So
my point. So if it comes out later that VRR is supported, okay, different story. Then this is well worth the money. I'll pay the extra 50 because we'll get great performing games now. But if not, then it's like, what could you have cut out of this to have made me
yeah.
save $50? You know,
Yeah, well, I guess with us, because we're older and we have like good jobs, we're gonna
doesn't
get it.
matter.
It's not gonna matter. But for other people, especially in this economy, like and especially looking at myself when I was a high schooler,
Yeah,
like
I would have
that
never been able to
stings.
afford
That
it.
stings
Yeah,
because I felt like when we were in high school, yeah, we were broke, but like if you worked, you grinded, you got a job, like you saved your money you got as gifts, you
yeah,
could eventually get more than one console.
yeah. It
But
just took a
now,
while.
now it's tough. Like unless
Yeah.
your parents are going to buy it for you, like and you're younger, like how are you going to get a PS5 Pro and a Switch?
I mean, most of the people I know, like my aunts and uncles that have kids that are young, like let's say between the age of 5 and 10, they don't buy their kids consoles. So most of them just play on their tablets now for free. There's like Roblox and like Fortnite. They're all free to play. So they're like, okay, you can play on your iPad. We already bought you the iPad for school, so just play it on this.
I have been hearing that iPad gaming has been blowing up.
Yeah, my nephew, he's only 6. He knows how to use the internet completely on his iPad, and I'm like, bro, this you should not know how to use your iPad this way. This is scaring me.
Yeah.
And it's
And
like,
and I never thought about that because, 6 sounds like such a young age to like have a console, but man, we had a PS1 when I was 5.
yeah, I know.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, and then
And look how fucked up you turned out to be.
I know, right? Thank God I started gaming early. Yeah, and then I got Halo 1, and I want to say I got the Xbox when I was in like the 4th grade,
Yeah.
3rd or 4th grade.
That's what I'm saying. It's crazy because for us it doesn't seem like a big deal, but when I now look at it, I'm like, I don't want to. If I had a kid, I'm like, you're not touching games until you're 20. You know,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because third grade
it's
for
brain
me,
rot.
that
I'd be
was
like, that's
8.
brain rot.
Yeah, and Halo came out in 2001. So, dude, I really think I was 8, and I got a mature rated game, and I was playing Halo, and I was terrified by the flood.
Which is funny because your parents had to buy the maturity game, obviously. Did they not realize that? Anyways, that's not the point. The point is, do you now understand why your parents probably said, "Hey, games are brain rot. Don't play games when you're younger"?
Oh yeah.
I look. I don't even have kids, and I'm already saying to my nephew and niece, I'm like, no, I'm not letting them touch video games. So when they come to my house now, I pretend as if I don't have children's games, so I don't let them. Because dude, I don't.
It's only gonna last so long.
I know.
Because as they grow older,
Yeah, they'll
you're gonna want to share your hobbies with them.
But we're slowly trying to get them into things like Pokemon cards and stuff. But the bigger point is that when they come to my house, I specifically do not let them play video games just yet because I just don't feel like they're ready. They're at that point. And I know I shouldn't be making that decision, but like, because what my first video game.
Hypocrite.
I know, yeah, that's true. But my first video game was when I was 5 as well. It was the Super. Was it Super Genesis? Yeah, Sega Genesis, and it was Sonic. And so again, I was like 5. And
I think in our generation we started early, man. I want to say, like, I would hang out with like all my cousins, and they would all be playing Tekken, and I wanted to play Tekken, and I was so upset that I was bad at Tekken.
Yeah.
And I felt bad. I was like, why do I suck? Why can't I play Tekken? I was 5.
Yeah.
Why would I be able to beat them at Tekken?
Yeah. And my first mature rated game was Mortal Kombat 2 on the Sega. And I was only like 6. And I'm like, I shouldn't be playing this. There's women wearing skimpy clothes. I should not be watching this.
Okay, it was a little blockier back then, right?
But no.
Nowadays.
But it wasn't even blocky because the way they created the game was they took still images of the character, so Mortal Kombat was different back in the day. You look like an actual, you've seen like how it looked back then. It wasn't like.
No, you're gonna have to describe it to me.
Well, let me just show you. What's that website? It starts with a P.
I'm just kidding.
But yeah, so like even then, I would watch Mortal Kombat, and I'm like, why am I playing this? So yeah, I just feel like this generation is slightly different in the sense that if people are already off put by buying something this expensive, I'd rather at least it be a Nintendo console because you have family friendly games more prevalent on there. So that's my point. I think Nintendo should have went with 400, even with the tariffs looming. And I know all of this is kind of coming up recently, and maybe this already accounts for it. But if Nintendo raises it another 50, let's say 6 months to a year from now, I will be utterly pissed.
I mean, didn't Japan just get hit with 25%?
Yeah.
I mean, what's that going to look like?
God, I don't know. Dude, this is where I heard the $90 from. So in Europe, one of the Nintendo first party games is 90 euros. People are complaining about it already.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
And so it begins.
Yeah. So we're lucky in the US it's not hitting 90, but I think it was either Mario Kart for them or one other game. I don't remember.
Well, it was going to happen eventually, but man, it sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. So it is what it is.
So, all right. Well, I think that pretty much covers everything we wanted to chat about.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, I guess we'll catch everyone around, and hopefully we'll learn even more about the Switch as time goes on.
Yeah. And if any of you got lucky enough to go to the event at the end of this week to play Switch 2 games live in New York or Cali, please give me your ticket if you can. Otherwise, have fun.
How do you even know that was a thing?
Yeah, I entered for it. I didn't get it. Man. I would have flew to New York to play it. So it was at the Nintendo store.
That's what happens when you start gaming at 5.
Yeah, literally. You get addicted. So.
All right.
See you
around.
guys.